And then we also have, I can't believe this is a real fucking name. I feel bad for this child. But Macintosh Muggleton.
Yes.
Plays Andy.
Yes.
The son of Don and Alice.
And we would like to thank him for taking a semester off from Hogwarts to do this movie.
I had to double check. I was like, this is really his name? It's literally like, what if an alien landed and they were asked, what's your name? And they were at a Best Buy and they just saw a copy of Harry Potter and fucking
Macintosh computer.
They're like, what's your name? Macintosh.
Muggleton.
What's your last name? Muggleton.
Macintosh Muggleton, real guy. Yeah. That's my full name.
That name felt so fake.
Hello, and welcome to Judgmental Horror Junkies. I am one of your hosts, Reno Dino Valentino, head doctor at the Asylum for the Insane. And with me, as always, is Goreship, the ship that sells the river Styx, and the coolest guy at the Mad Tea Party. How are you this fine day, Goreship?
Hello. Thank you, Reno. Good day, fellow listeners.
Yes, that particular intro was brought to you by my coaster, which is a Mad Hatter coaster.
That actually reminds me. I'm going to take a quick second to...
There it is.
Crack open a nice cold liquid death.
I mean, if that's not
It's not a sponsor.
If that's not on brand for this podcast.
Yeah, it's not a sponsorship, ad, but it is something that I highly endorse in pretty much any chance I get. I'm a big liquid death kind of guy, especially this new flavored cherry obituary.
It's
probably one of my favorite next to Mango Chainsaw.
And those are just energy drinks, right? Or do they have alcohol in them?
No, these are actually flavored sparkling waters. There's no energy drink to it.
I am also drinking a flavored sparkling water that has a horror theme to it. It is Waterloo Blackberry Lemonade. Ooh.
Like the Battle of Waterloo? Because that's a racial historical history.
So many dead people at Waterloo. Nope, that's just a cheap company that makes pretty good water. Yeah, sparkling water.
All I can say is Liquid Death was made by a couple of nerds who decided, hey, we love Dungeons & Dragons, we also like metal. Let's make some heavy metal-themed flavored waters.
Two people after my own heart, and you just reminded me. You're probably familiar with this, Goreship, but if you are not, there is a horror movie about Dungeons & Dragons starring a young Tom Hanks, in which he plays too much Dungeons & Dragons and ends up killing his friends because, Dungeons & Dragons was during the Satanic Panic time.
1984.
Yeah, and I think we should absolutely cover that for this show.
Okay.
I might pick it as my movie one.
Okay, I've never heard of that, but that'd be interesting. I'm always thrown off by a young Tom Hanks, especially a new movie recently that I saw a trailer for where he was CGI'd as a young Tom Hanks throughout the entire movie. It was the adult him playing a young version of himself.
Is it a sequel to Big 2?
I don't know what it was, but I was thrown off by it because clearly the two actors in it were just younger versions of themselves being CGI'd for a long portion of it.
You've gone too far.
Anyways, moving away from the digital horror that is AI face replacement.
Sure.
Let's talk about this month's pick. A sequel follow-up to the
First
2002 classic. You picked it.
Yep.
Name it. What is it?
This is a 2007, 28 Weeks Later, the sequel to 28 Days Later, and our first sequel. I'm so proud to have brought us this. And since there have been whisperings and rumblings about it 28 years later,
I'm excited
it's a very good time to cover the second of the what will hopefully be a trifecta. If the third movie is as good as the first two, I will be very happy.
Ooh, we're going to have some hot takes because I feel differently.
You're not a fan of 28 Weeks
28
Later?
Days Later has my heart. Loved it. Loved when we covered it.
Yeah.
28 Weeks Later did not have the same appeal to my heart as the first one did.
I do not think you're alone in that. It did not get a lot of acclaim. People did not like it. I liked it. People did not.
I don't know if it was... And we'll talk about it more in detail as the story plays out, but I don't know if it was as a whole that maybe by that time I started becoming just disinterested in zombie stuff. Mm-hmm. And the zombie craze started waning on me, and I was like, oh, another zombie.
Yeah.
And I knew it was a sequel, but it just didn't feel like a sequel. Something about it Maybe I just wanted too much Cillian Murphy. Maybe I just wanted...
It has such a different feel than the first movie. It almost... Like, it obviously takes place...
A lot of the filming style, like, with the slow-mo...
Director Juan Carlos Fresnadillo.
He is a writer and a director.
Yes,
He's one of 3 writers on this film.
He definitely brought a different style. I do not think he is as good of a director. Like, I do not think... Like, I think 28 Days Later had a much clearer vision, cinematography-wise,
You know why? You know why that is? It's because they worked in the small parameters of a low-budget movie.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of effort that they put into the cinematography was focused heavier on the actual quality of scenery and dialogue writing over the shots and practical effects.
The only scene that cost them a ton of money were at the beginning walking through an abandoned London. Like, clearing out London took most of the budget of that movie.
Oh, yeah. Because you have to pay all these permits to halt the city and basically get people to not be anywhere near camera shooting site.
Absolutely. So I saw this movie in theaters right when it came out, or shortly after. So sometime in 2007. I had not watched it since then. I remember first impressions. I remember being really... this was the first movie I ever saw where the character that you follow around was such a piece of shit. Like, he... Well, actually, no. Let me take that back.
I was like, we've seen a couple where...
Not... Yeah, but like this in 2007, I had not.
Yeah.
And I actually, that's not right. Now, I'm going to rephrase this. Not a piece of shit not just a clear monster or a clear hero, but was so shaded of gray, like, in a way that...
That didn't feel like it had redeeming qualities?
Well, like, at the beginning, you're not sure if you're gonna root for this guy. Honestly, the rooting for him stopped for me when he set his kids down and explained to them what happened to their mom. Up until that point, I was like, okay, he made a horrible mistake. Like, he fucked up. In a moment of cowardice, he fucked up. Okay. Is this going to be a redemption arc for this character? Is this going... Like, I was very taken in by, like, how are we going to go with this?
You would think.
It's a weird start.
Yeah.
It's a very weird start to have, like... This is something you usually see about halfway through the movie. Like in Train to Busan.
Yeah.
Where the asshole just keeps living.
Yeah, okay.
But right at the beginning, I'd never seen that before.
But see, that's what makes Train to Busan such a great original movie.
I love
the way that they develop character arc while telling the overlying horror story of the fucking infection.
Yes.
Also, the fact that, remember, we're not allowed to call these creatures in this movie zombies. They're just rage infected.
Yeah.
We're not allowed to call them zombies because they're not zombies. Remember that argument?
They can't stop me.
I remember that being part of like our discussion back and forth for 28 Days Later, whether or not they could be considered zombies. I remember that yes and no.
Yeah.
Like
more proof that they can't be called zombies, though, because we see gas work on them.
Yeah,
a point in this, I'm like,
nerve
wow,
gas, like chemical
not
agents.
something you'd expect. Yeah, certainly not something that would affect zombies. Where was your first influx with this movie? Did you see it when it came out?
This was one of the first movies that, like, I was in high school, and I believe me and a couple friends went to the movie theaters and saw it, and like we snuck in.
No.
Because
I remember this.
I think we said we were going to go see Speed Racer, and instead we watched this movie instead. I think that's what happened.
Yeah.
But we watched it, and I remember just like even when I watched it in the theater back then, I was like, "Oh man, I love 28 Days Later. This doesn't feel right. This just doesn't feel like." It doesn't feel like the same universe of a movie, even though the story is supposed to be a continuation. Literally, a continuation. It tells you the time frame in the movie.
Yeah.
Which I give them props for literally giving you a clear established timeline of when everything played out. But it just, even back then and rewatching it, because I know multiple times throughout the years since it came out, I would see it play on TV, especially around Halloween. It'd be playing on FX a lot. Right. Or TNT.
Yeah. Cheaper than 28 Days Later to,
and when The Walking
get the
Dead,
rights to.
When The Walking Dead was making its boom, it was one of those movies that they would play a lot of
course.
On free TV, you know.
Yeah, it was one of the zombie revivals, so they were like, let's get in on that.
I would always have it sometimes just playing in the background while I was doing stuff, and like, I knew that I still didn't like it, but it was background fodder. That's all it was.
Yeah.
And like, even while watching it, I try to remind myself, stay focused, stay watching the movie. Don't look away from it, because like my brain wanted to go to a just disconnect mode, which I don't know what that says about me or the movie.
Yeah.
And the way I interpret it, but it definitely...
Well, it might just be that that's your history with the movie. Like, it's like a Pavlov's dog reflex, where the movie starts playing, you're like, I should be washing the dishes right
exactly.
now.
Okay, yeah. I was like, do I have laundry I need to do?
Every time a bell rings, I drool and watch 28 Weeks Later. It's weird.
Yeah, but like, that was my occurrences. Like, I remember watching it in high school and then on free TV all the fucking time.
Yeah.
Afterwards, and never really feeling any connection to it like I did 28 Days Later.
Yep.
Like, there was something about 28 Days Later that was significantly more scary. That's what it was. I think it was. I didn't find this movie as scary.
Yeah.
Even when it was super intense in the first like 10 minutes of the movie, didn't really bother me as much as like when, you know, the rage zombies basically broke into the house the first time in the first movie. Didn't feel the same.
Yeah.
But let's get back to our usual track here. As you said, you chose 28 Weeks Later. It was written by Rowan Hoffe, Juan Carlos Resnadillo, and Enrique Lopez Lavín.
Yeah.
It was directed by Juan Carlos Resnadillo, and we have a pretty good cast of eclectic characters.
Oh my gosh. We Donald, our father figure.
Don, good old Don.
Good old Don is Robert Carlyle. Bigby in Trainspotting?
Well, I was actually going to say yes, but I remember the first time I ever saw him was Full Monty.
Yes, he's in Full Monty as well.
He was one of the first guys I recognized when I saw this movie. I was like, wait. One, I shouldn't have been watching that movie as a child.
No, someone should have been watching it.
Especially given us content. My parents did not do a good job on that because they let me watch a bunch of random R-rated movies. No. Same thing as why were they letting me watch Trainspotting?
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
Because before I knew Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi, I knew him as the guy from Moulin Rouge and Trainspotting.
Yeah. God, I love that movie.
And same thing with...
That could almost be a horror movie just for that baby scene where it's crawling on the ceiling.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Robert Carlyle playing Don... I was like, oh shit, it's the Full Monty guy. But not only that, I just realized when we were rewatching this, I was like, wait, he also plays Rumpelstiltskin in Once Upon a Time.
Yep.
And speaking of Once Upon a Time, that kind of comes full circle to your other podcast, Comic Dissection, where you were discussing Fables.
We just did Fables, yeah.
Fables.
Once on a Time.
Very close relation to Once Upon a Time. It's very much in the same realm of
same vein,
almost a copy and paste. Sure. Anyways, our cast of characters are, one, Jeremy Renner as well, that you know playing Hawkeye from the Avengers.
Yes, I make more than one Hawkeye joke in my notes. So he is Sergeant Doyle, who is a sniper in this, spends most of his time on a roof.
You have Rose Byrne, who plays Lieutenant Medical Chief Officer Scarlet.
Yeah, Scarlett O'Hara. Or Scarlett, who did it in the library with the candlestick. However you want to take your Scarlett.
We have another small bit role, but important role, played by Idris Elba, also known to DC and Marvel fans as Heimdall and Bloodsport.
Yes.
And
Big bad General Stone.
Yeah, General Stone. Kind of a forced to be the bad guy kind of role.
Yeah, he wasn't, again, a lot of shades of gray in this. Like, he very much, at least...
Kill 1,000 to save...
and at least every time he did this, he had a tear in his eye. At least he was never just like...
Was it tears? Because it looked very, like, stoic discontent.
He was... No, I'm being sarcastic. But he was always, like... He never was cartoonishly evil.
Yeah.
He was always... Like, after he says to shoot all targets... Like, he just sits down in his chair so defeated that you just wanted to hug him.
And he just resonates with what he chose.
Yeah.
He sits there with his choice.
He's like, it is my choice. I'm taking full responsibility, but I feel like shit.
I enacted Code Red, and I chose to use chemical weapons.
Yeah. Good on him for that.
The last of our cast members are... Calling back to one of our previous movies, Imogen Poots, who plays Tammy.
Yes.
She played Ashley in Green Room.
Yeah, that's right. Imogen Poots is back, baby.
Yeah.
Older Imogen Poots in Green Room. This is a younger.
This is about like almost 11 years later.
Yeah.
But
we got Catherine McCormick playing the mom, Alice. Donald's love interest? Question mark.
It's supposed to be his wife.
Yeah.
But and then we also have I can't believe this is a real fucking name. I feel bad for this child, but Macintosh Muggleton.
Yes,
plays Andy. Yes, the son of Don and Alice.
And we would like to thank him for taking a semester off from Hogwarts to do this movie.
I had to double check. I was like, "This is really his name?" It's literally like, what if an alien landed and they were asked, "What's your name?" and they were at a Best Buy and they just saw a copy of Harry Potter and a fucking
Macintosh computer.
They're like, "What's your name?" Macintosh.
Muggleton.
What's your last name? Muggleton.
Macintosh Muggleton, real guy. That's my full name.
That name felt so fake.
Yes, and then we have, last but not least, Harold Peridian.
Who plays Sergeant Finn.
Yeah, who is our helicopter pilot and close friend of Sergeant Doyle. Excuse me. And man, I liked his character too. Like, Flynn was a fun guy.
He was another one of those guys that was bordering on shades of gray, but, you know...
Does the right thing in the end. Yeah, we think until we see the end.
You can't hate him for where his position lies, given what we know from both sides of the coin.
And I like it because almost every character is like that. Like, Doyle takes a couple civilian shots before he finds a becomes a better person. Like, Donald obviously really cares about his kids, even though he does this extremely cowardly thing early on in the movie. We have General Stone, as we've already mentioned, like he shows the weight of his decisions. He doesn't make them without being aware of the consequences.
You're gonna carry that weight, kid.
Yeah, exactly. So I like these characters, and that is one of the things that I will go to bat for as we go on. But to go on, we must go on. So, yeah, let's jump into the movie unless you got a plot synopsis over there you want to hit us with.
Of course I do. That's the routine here. Mm-hmm. So, for those of you who don't recall what happened in the first movie, the original, 28 Days Later, the outbreak happened, and we got to see a small group of people surviving that first 28 days of infection. In this, we are given 6 months after the rage virus was inflicted on the population of Great Britain, the U.S. Army helped secure a small area of London for the survivors to repopulate and start again. But not everything goes according to plan.
God
short, sweet,
bless
to the point.
America.
And this time, we actually have U.S. presence as a plot device moving through.
Oh, yeah. A lot of it.
Because I remember another discussion thread that we had from the original was, did the infection only stay in London? Was it only England?
And the answer is... yes, in the first movie, and no in the second. By the end of it, because of the choices of Flynn, but we'll get there. But we'll start with our with a little bit of night cooking. You've got apparently a couple. This is Alice and Donald making.
I thought this was a pretty cool opening shot. I like how the opening shot is it's all black, and then you see a match being lit, and it lights up her two discolored eyes.
Yes,
one's bluish hazel, and the other is brown.
Yeah, that is a great thing. Like, at first, it seems to be just nothing. Just like, oh, what a cool opening shot.
But it signifies so much.
Important, yeah.
It's a visual cue that signifies so much for this movie, and it has a really deep meaning.
Their crazy eyes gonna be important.
The establishing shots that show up close shots of eyes are very important in this movie.
Mm-hmm. And we have so many good eye shots. So Donald and Alice are getting dinner ready. They're sad because no more cans of tomatoes. Now there's just chickpeas.
Lots of chickpeas. We can live off that for days. No beans or tomatoes, though. Or tomatoes.
Yeah, no tomatoes. Well, he says, it's very funny. He says, we have 5 cans of chickpeas. That should last us about 3 years. Implying nobody likes chickpeas, which actually I don't know that I've had chickpeas. Look at this
tiny little bit of wine that I have left, too, by the way.
Yeah, he holds the bottle up to the light, and he's like, oh, it looks like it's still drinkable. Good. Yeah.
I laughed a little bit. I was like, because who got like one little baby shot each person?
Yeah. Everybody gets a shot of wine. Little old lady comes in and she's like, oh, we found some like, it looked like Valentine's Day candy. She's like, we found some chocolate in the basement, so everyone's gonna get a little chocolate after. Much like the wine, everyone gets this like a smidge of chocolate.
Chocolate.
Yeah, you get a little square of chocolate and a little shot of wine with dinner. Very exciting stuff.
The discussion between Don and Alice does allude to what will develop later in the story, is they're discussing about how they're worried about their children.
Yes.
And if they're okay, if they're safe. And Don reassures Alice that they're far away from here. Yeah. They're out of the quarantine zone.
They went on a school trip before all this went down.
So they were safe, and they were not allowed to come back. They're with relatives basically being held safely while Mom and Dad are fighting for their lives.
Yes, Mom and Dad have shacked up with a nice old couple and like a couple of youngins that they've all just found each other in this apocalypse in this farm. So they're in this farmhouse that they boarded up for obvious reasons.
This farmhouse actually belongs to the elderly couple that you saw pictured. That is Jeff, the old man, and Sally, the old lady who finds the chocolate. Sweet old Sally.
Sweet Sally. We
very,
wish
very
her
sweet old lady.
all the goodness. Yeah.
And the other people that are residing there are a younger man named Jacob. And a young woman named Karen.
Yeah, now
apparently
Jacob's their hothead.
Yeah, he's also pretty off the cuff, but he's trying to keep it real while being panicked.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah,
I get the reaction.
Pretty much every reaction in this movie, I understand. I'm like, that is a human reaction, and it makes sense.
It feels real.
It's not good, always, but it makes sense, yeah.
That's one thing that I will say, I'll give credit where credit is due. The first one did the same thing, where everyone's super quick, volatile reactions, it's a human knee-jerk.
Yeah.
They did the same thing with this for the most part, where everyone's decisions are real life. Okay, this is how I feel like an actual human would react in this situation presented with what we're given.
Yeah.
And so, while at this dinner, Karen, the other lady, she's very somber, she's sad, she's kind of disconnected from everyone. They're all trying to cheer and laugh a little bit and talk about it. And when they're handing out the plates of dinner, she sets a bowl down beside her in an empty chair. Yeah. She's like, I'm saving it for Dan. He'll want somebody gets back. He'll be awfully hungry. Yeah. And this leads to Jacob doing what?
Jacob flips shit and is like, he's not coming back. He's been gone for 3 days, 5 days. 5 days. If he comes back, it's not the pasta he's going to be interested. It's going to be your fucking neck.
Yep.
And I'm like, woo! Okay. So the old man is trying to like joke and talk about his wine. He's like sniffing it, going like, "Oh, I smell scent of almonds,
vanilla, and cinnamon."
Yeah, like he's trying to be light, but Jacob brings the reality of this situation home, and to people, and I doubt this is a large number, but to people who walked into the second movie without having seen the first, you're getting an idea of what's going on. You're like
the calamity of the situation.
Yeah, like shit's bad out there.
And I love the timing of him yelling. It's like, there's no one left out there. It's just us in here.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, the door starts banging.
Yes.
And it's a little boy screaming, "Help me, let me in, let me in, let me in, help me."
And Alice immediately starts to get up.
Mom mode.
Donald grabs her arm and is like, "We don't know what's out there. Like, sit back down." And this is a very subtle hint of Donald's character. He's a play it safe kind of guy. Brave when it like he'll fight when he needs to, but he'd rather not. But Alice is like, that is a child's voice. And so it's also interesting, Alice makes Donald a better person because Donald would have left him out there. Alice is like, it's a child. So Donald gets up and they go to the door together.
She appeals to his fatherly nature by saying, "But what if it was Andy?"
Yeah.
You know, like, what if it was ours? Mm-hmm. What if it was our kid out there? Would you not want someone to help them?
Yeah. So Donald does, you know, he mans up here at least, and he answers the door.
Yeah, they blindly open the door.
There's a kid. Well, you can only blindly open it because they've got it all boarded up. Like, there's no. That's part of the fear is there's no other way to open the door except blindly because of the way it's all protecting you from the outside. They open up and a kid comes running in.
They sit him down. They let him, relax a second. And they start feeding him. He's sitting down to dinner.
And he is eating with no spoon. He's
scooping
it into his mouth.
And I think it was Alice who asked the important questions, like, what were you doing out there? Why were you out there?
Yeah.
What were you...
And this is heartbreaking.
And,
the kid was being chased by his own parents.
Well, it was like, what were you running from? She's like, my mom and dad started chasing me.
Yeah, like, oh my God.
Like, oh, you were with your mom and dad? And he said, yeah, and some others. And she's like, so why were they chasing you?
How many others?
He's like,
loads. I love that. And at the same time, the blonde has wandered off.
She fucked up, bro.
And she's just peeking through, like, there's a little slit.
She moves the little cloth that they had plugged between it, between the slats,
so she can look out the window. And I think she's in another room. She is. She's in another room. Kitchen. So I imagine she didn't hear the how many loads part.
Yeah,
she's looking for her man who disappeared.
The kitchen window.
Yeah, she's looking for her man who disappeared 5 days ago.
Yeah.
She's probably been keeping a vigil ever since he left. And unfortunately, red eyes, like all of a sudden, and duck in from the right, and
they rip through the window and just immediately chomp down her arm, and so she gets infected super quick. And as she's being bitten and infected, Jacob tries to come over and rip her out of the hole in the wall and stop the zombie from biting her. Well, when she falls on top of Jacob, you see her instantly go from screaming and being in pain to transform to being a rage infected.
And one of the things about these infected, again, for people who haven't seen is that they projectile vomit their blood. It's a way for them to spread the infection.
If the blood gets in any of your open orifices, in your mouth, in your eyes, or in an open wound...
Blood, saliva, don't let them bite you. Don't let them spit on you, but easier said than done.
No bodily fluid contact.
Yeah, easier said than done, because these are the fast zombies. Yeah, I said it's zombies. They're fast, and ergo, it is hard to protect yourself. And the defenses fall so fucking quick.
Oh, yeah.
Because the wood was never meant to keep them out. It was just a stopgap. The shades were actually what were doing it, because with the covers drawn, the zombies walk right by, because it doesn't look like there's anybody in there.
Yeah.
But, man, if they see your fucking eyeballs...
They're not the intelligent zombie level to go think about opening doors.
We're knocking and saying they're a kid.
Yeah. So, Jacob is trying to rescue Karen, but Karen's now been infected, and she's vomiting blood up onto him.
Yes.
And right as she's about to chomp down on Jacob's neck, Dawn comes through with a crowbar and breaks in her fucking skull, and is like, we need to get out of here.
Yeah.
Well, in that same vein, Jacob, Sally, and Jeff all split off. They start running towards the barn outside, where Dawn tries following after Alice, who is now chasing after the boy's shepherd.
The boy ran, because of course you would, in this situation. Alice, of course, goes after him.
Because her motherly instinct tells her to protect
Donald is still on the first floor with a crowbar fighting off zombies. And it's interesting, too, because he does show cowardness later, but at this point, he seems to be a relatively brave guy. He tries to save Jacob. He's single-handedly fighting.
The two that burst in through the window,
the numbers game. He's like, okay, this is too much. So he runs upstairs. He's chasing Alice. He finds her in a bedroom looking for the boy.
Who's hiding in the fucking closet.
He's hiding in the closet. She can see him, and she's trying to get him to come out. Donald is saying, you've got to leave him. They're coming. She refuses. He's at the door to the bathroom, and the zombies bust in. She looks at him in desperation, and I remember in the theater when he slams the door and abandons her, my jaw hitting the fucking floor, because I was like, wait, was I not... I was supposed to like this guy? I thought this was one of the guys we were going to be following through the whole thing. And when that happened, I was like, my immediate thought was, oh, they're all going to die. And this is just showing zombies. And we're going to go 28 weeks later and follow a totally different group. Because, what the fuck? This cannot be the dude we're following.
To be fair, I understood the human reaction of like, well, she chose the kid over following me. So...
Yeah. And the zombies have busted in. Like, I can't get to her now.
He still had that crowbar. He could have bashed that one... There was only one that broke in at the time.
Yeah.
He could have bashed that one's head, shut the door, and then grabbed both the kid and her.
But he was downstairs. He knows there's not just one.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and he...
On the other hand, I will cast a little bit of blame on her.
Oh, no.
I will cast that she, like, blindly chose this fucking child, who, honestly, he probably could have stayed hidden there and they probably would have never found him.
Very possible.
Like, he could have waited out, because clearly he's done this hiding shit from them before.
Yeah.
But... Anyways, Dawn, you're right. Dawn slow closes and Alice is in just disbelief, screaming his name.
Yeah.
Dawn.
And he can hear it from the bathroom. He's opened the window.
I'm sorry. And he climbs out the window and falls off the roof and
runs off. And then he can see her in the window.
As he's running.
On the window, yelling for him.
He turns around long enough.
Tackled.
Yeah, he sees her long enough to be screaming Dawn with both her hands slamming on the window pane. She looks at him, and then as soon as he looks back and meets eyes with her, she gets tackled to the ground by another zombie.
Yeah.
And all you hear is screaming.
Yeah.
We cut back to Jacob, Sally, and Jeff, who have now made it to the barn.
Yeah.
And they are
trying to get into the hayloft.
Yeah, they're trying to get up there so
but
they can
the
get
old
out their
man
secondary escape.
Is trying to block the door.
He dies a hero's death.
Yes.
He barricades the door because he knows the wooden lock is not strong enough to protect his wife and Jacob.
He is holding the door, trying to get his wife and Jacob up the ladder. Jacob's already climbing, but the wife is not.
Sally, in her fucking...
She wants her husband to come with him. She thinks there's
grieving
time.
Distress is what I was
calling it.
Her grieving distress. She was like, no, Jacob, we can't just leave him. And Jeff's like, go. I'm doing this so you can live, and you're really fucking up my plan.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't say it, but, like, he's literally yelling, like, you need to go.
Yeah.
And finally, they break the door, and Sally then finally decides to try and get up the ladder.
But she's old and slow, and it's too late. Yeah.
Late.
They both get chewed.
You watch Jeff get... Literally, you kind of does the... Dawn of the Dead style George Romero filming where they show Jeff laying on his back and all the hands just ripping apart his chest and stuff. I was like, oh, that's a nice little homage.
That was an homage, yeah.
Nice little homage to the original Dawn of the Dead. I liked it. And then you see Sally get literally carried away as she's trying to reach for Jacob's arm. Yeah. And, like, then slowly she gets drawn into the mass of zombies who are just pulling her apart.
At first it looked like she was just crowd surfing and was going to be okay. It's like, oh, they like her. It's
but then when you saw her sitting down like the Terminator.
That's a problem.
So Jacob shuts the latch and gets away. Even when he shuts the latch, the zombies are trying to crawl up the fucking loft so they can follow him. Well, he gets out. He makes it down to their escape boat.
Oh, now we get some really cool aerial shots of them running away from the barn, and we get our 28 Days Later theme, which I loved in 28 Days Later, and I like it again here.
Same story,
the theme is so good, and it's them running away from the house while that tune plays to the river.
Yeah, Dawn is the only one that you see in the aerial shot running through this field, and as you see Dawn like overhead, it cuts to in front of him, and as you look over Dawn's shoulder, you see more and more and more of these zombies gaining on him.
And then you get a side shot, and there's like a green hill, and there's more coming up over the hill.
From both angles.
Well, he's fucked.
Just like a mass horde is coming to the swamp.
Yeah, like he is fucked.
So he finally gets down to the dock where Jacob is already preparing to unstrap the boat and try and jump in and take off.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think Jacob, if he would have been just 5 seconds faster, he would have taken off without Dawn. Because Dawn jumps in over him as he's trying to fucking untether and immediately starts trying to fucking crank the boat.
Yeah.
Well, when he gets untethered, Jacob goes to jump and he fucking misses the boat because Dawn has already started up the engine and kind of taken off a little bit.
Yeah. Dawn's friendship survival rate here is 0. Like he didn't rescue anybody.
Yeah. And so Jacob's like, Dawn, pull me in. And as he's trying to do that, the zombies jump in the water, and their first thought is just keep swimming towards the guy who's in the water, and they pull him under and fucking bite him.
Yeah.
I love the shot sequence of how Jacob's screaming, help me, and he goes to reach for Dawn. Dawn tries to reach for him. He gets pulled under.
Yeah.
Dawn's like, oh no, Jacob. And then Jacob pops out of the water infected.
Already infected, yeah.
Very Jason from Friday the 13th.
And fucking Dawn has to knock him back into the water because,
and then he spins that speedboat around, and some of the rotor blades cut up a couple of zombie heads, and he takes off down the road.
This very much reminds me of when you're playing a game, like a group game online, and you get an entire party wipe, and like you're the only survivor, and you're just like, well, I can't complete the mission by myself. I'm going to have to just get out of here and wait for my friends to respawn, and we'll go back in and try it again. Except, of course, no respawn here. Then we get a nice timeline of what happened during the 28 weeks to get us to when the movie, quote-unquote, starts.
This is how the sequence of events post Dawn's survival escape proceeds.
Yes.
We get 15 days later, mainland Britain is quarantined. Flash forward again. 28 days later, mainland Britain has been destroyed by rage virus. Flash forward again. 5 weeks later, the infected have died of starvation.
Woohoo!
Flash forward again. 11 weeks later, a US-led NATO force enters London. Flash forward once more. 18 weeks later, mainland Britain is declared free of infection. 24 weeks later, Reconstruction begins. 28 weeks later. ...
Today!
Infection returns.
Yeah.
Now we get this whole military operation set up that shows us multiple snipers posted around the city buildings monitoring, the train, the activity of people walking through the buildings.
Yeah.
Literally, the civilians that they've saved are being monitored at sniper scope.
Yes. And the snipers are not really taking it too seriously because they're joking about how quiet it is. And
I bring this up as a point because this is where we get to meet Commander Doyle.
Yeah, do a little peeping Tom stuff.
Our little sharpshooter, Jeremy Renner's character of Lieutenant Doyle. And this is our first time meeting him. And the first time we meet him, he's complaining about how bored he is, and this is the lamest combat he's seen. Where's the action? That's a direct quote. At least, man, this is the lamest combat I've ever been a part of.
He's talking to Flynn, his friend, who's a helicopter pilot up in the sky, who is also complaining about the same.
He's like, I was expecting some shit.
Yeah.
He's like, I got out of bed with my wife and my nice, cozy bed, my kids.
For this shit. Yeah, I'm telling you, these snipers are not taking this seriously, and President's going to lose an ear if they don't start paying attention. That's right, I'm topical. They don't start concentrating. New plane is coming in. Doyle sees it in the sky coming into land, and he says something like, "Welcome to England, welcome back to London," whatever. Yep. And because they're slowly bringing all the expats, all the English people that weren't in England at the time, or that left because, zombies, they're letting them all come back in a little at a time.
It's part of a rebuilding process.
Yeah, and so they've got this area, this military base where they've cleaned up, and this is where people will live, and they'll slowly move outward and eventually, in theory, take all of England back. And so they're bringing in people. But this group coming off the plane's a little different because it's got children.
Yeah, and this is a big deal, and it's brought
Scarlett is pissed. This is the medical officer, Scarlett.
Chief medical officer. Put some respect. Put some respect on her title.
She didn't go to chief medical school for 8 years for me to drop the chief off her name. But yeah, she straight up says, "No one told me we're now admitting children." And she is mad because she does not feel it's safe enough for kids yet.
But she starts scanning, all these people and the children for potential diseases, not just the virus, but anything else that may be a spreadable contagion.
You don't want bed bugs. They're a real pain in the ass to get rid of if you get them.
And she just happens to be scanning a boy named Andy, who we see has the two discolored eyes.
He got them weird eyes. Yes. He got them weird eyes like... apparently his mother, according to him.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, exactly.
if you know, you know.
Yeah, if you know, you know.
And
so we're like, so this is how we are connected to the people from the beginning. At this point in the movie, I still thought Donald was not going to show up again, or if he was, it was going to be as a zombie.
Well, the reason why we get the importance of this is because, like I said, those eye shots where they show the up-close shots of Andy's eyes, just like they showed Alice's eyes.
Yep.
It signifies some type of importance, especially when she's discussing disease and infection.
She mentions also that, that's a genetic thing.
Yep, it's a genetic mutation.
Yeah, did your parents have eyes like that? And he's like, well, my mom did. And then we, as the audience, if we're paying attention, would wisely connect that back to Alice, the lady that died, and I'm doing quotation marks if you can't see it, at the beginning of the movie.
And by the way, the specific trait that makes your eyes two different colors is called heterochromia.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice pull.
Yeah.
Nice pull, Goreship.
Thank you, Grey's Anatomy. Thank you to my fiance for making me watch Grey's Anatomy. I'm 14 seasons deep, so I think that's maybe why I have a little bit of appreciation for calling her a chief medical officer, because a couple of characters are not only military personnel, but also, head surgeons in the TV show. Yeah. And I'm like, man, they got fucked on both ends, because being a surgeon is like being in the military, and then actually being in the military
is like being in the military.
Yeah. So you got double whammy, and yes. I think I have a little bit of respect for Miss Scarlett here.
Yes, but yes, we are introduced to Jacob and also his sister, who is Tammy, and the two of them get on a train and head into the city, and they're getting a.
You get this little tour. Is it weird?
Yeah, you're getting it's the same as if you ride the tram at Disney World.
If you look to your left here, you'll see this famous spot over here.
Epcot Center on your left, Magic Kingdom on your right. There's Cinderella's castle. If you look closely, you might get a sight of Cinderella on the pulpit.
Except for this one is more like you're riding the train.
A lot darker.
Yeah, you're riding the train, and she's like, if you look over to the left, you'll see our military operations disposing of all disease potential ridden material.
Yeah, and you see a bunch of dudes in hazmat suits like dumping bags out and burning them, and she doesn't bring this up to give people nightmares. She's like, outside the zones we have marked off for you,
you are not permitted to go. You will be executed.
There are still bodies. Well, she didn't say executed, but she said it's dangerous out there. There's still bodies. There's rats. Wild packs of dogs have taken over. They've taken over all the hip night spots in London.
The line where she's like, it's in your best interest to stay in your designated zone.
It sounds a little threatening.
Yes.
Yeah. And she says District 1 is located on the Isle of Dogs, which is actually a peninsula in Greater London, which is formed by the Thames, by the river. I don't
know enough about England's geography to tell you what.
Well, it's only important because it is in fact a peninsula. So there's a later scene where they're like, we have to make it across the river.
Yeah,
that's why. Because there's only, if you know a peninsula, it's only connected to everything else by one strip.
Yeah,
which makes it very easy to make it a base of operation. Yeah. So that is why that is where they are currently operating from, the Isle of Dogs.
Well, they get to their new home at District 1 where Papa Don is waiting for them on the train platform.
Boy, I was surprised. I mean, not the second time I watched it, but the first time I watched it, I was like, this guy back?
And I'm like, bro, he's literally survived the entire infection period.
Yeah.
And now, not only is he survived it, he's one of the dudes that's leading operation at a whole building.
He's very in charge. Yeah, he handles electricity and water for a whole, section of the city, which means he has a card which lets him go anywhere.
Lots of
That'll
clearance.
be important
Lots
later.
Of clearance.
Yeah, he's got all the clearance. It's a very funny thing where they're getting ready to go to the building where they live, and he's like, "Yeah, I pretty much run operations here." And his son Andy's like, "You sound just like a custodian to me." And his dad hits a button real quick, and his son slams into the door. He's like, "No, I actually run things."
I run the whole thing.
And he lets him into the building.
I love that. I was like, scene. Talk shit.
Yeah, talk shit, get hit.
Dad's more of a janitor. Not much of a janitor, more of a building owner.
But it is great. This reunion, you don't get any. Again, it's just a tearful reunion between a father and his kids. And at that point, I'm just like, okay, all right, he fucked up, but now he's reunited with his kids. He's going to turn over his new leaf. But once they show him the apartment and the kids want to know what happened to their mom, this is where I lose all respect I might have had for Donald, because
this is what
his cover story is shite.
my first thought to myself whenever they reconnected after getting off the train, I was like, aw, family is officially reunited, just short of one mom.
Yeah, 3 out of 4 ain't bad, right?
And another thing I wanted to point out, I don't know if you caught this, but one quick takeaway I have from this movie already in just the first 20 minutes is these establishing shots to show the location, but they're all showing location through the establishment of military presence.
Yes.
And a lot of heavy surveillance. They
even announced on the train, they're like, the closer we get to the zone, the higher military presence you will notice.
Exactly. But what I'm saying is, I noticed, the way that the camera, the cinematography shows it is, you'll see a scene, and then you'll see the same exact scene through a surveillance lens.
Or a sniper's
and I was
point of view.
I was like, it's literally the same exact shot, camera frame, just replaced with the military's view of it. I was like, that's a very interesting way to double down on saying it or showing it without actually having to keep saying this is a hot, heavy military zone.
Yeah, we're doing the old chestnut of security versus freedom, because obviously security's really tight here because the infection happened.
When you see Don and the kids leave the platform, they hug and they start walking away, and then as they're walking away, you see the camera pull out to a faraway shot. that faraway shot continues to show, oh, they're being watched on the surveillance camera as they're leaving the train platform.
And he has to show his ID before he can even get near his building.
Exactly.
And it's like, wow, all right, guys. But the security makes sense, considering the details.
But now, as you said, we've gotten home to the little apartment.
Tammy and Andy want to know what happened to Mom. And, Donald, he smudges a detail or two here. I would say, what would you give, Goreship, what would you give the truth detector on this? About 80%, maybe?
No, I give it about a 60% because he's leaving out big factors here.
I mean, the first part and the last part both sound pretty true. It's only that little bit in the middle I feel he was deceitful on. The one thing they actually asked about.
Yeah, like, he left out the part where, like, I could have saved her.
Yeah.
But I didn't.
Here's the thing.
I tucked tail and ran.
Have you ever in your life told a lie that seemed that there was 0% chance of you ever getting found out about? It seemed foolproof. You're like, there is no way that this will ever come back to bite me in the ass. Only for it to come back and bite you in the ass. Because I'll be honest, as far as lies go, this should have been fucking bulletproof. Like, everyone that saw what happened was either dead or incapable of speech. Donald should have been able to get away with this one. It is a weird set of circumstances that make him not able to get away with this.
You always have to account for that 1% oddity chance that maybe there was a survival.
Tell the truth, listeners, because you never know.
That 1% can bite you in the fucking ass.
It's right.
Or neck. Or neck if you want to be more specific.
What he ends up saying... The real bit that fucks this all up later is he says, I saw them tear her apart. He's rather vague on the actual details of when she dies. But he says very clearly, and this is honestly, he had days and days and days to figure out what he was going to tell the kids.
Oh, yeah,
about
when
Mom.
he knew that they were coming, yeah, he had plenty of time to plan.
I would not have said, I saw them tear her apart. I would have kept it...
1 minute she was there, next minute she was gone.
I would have kept it as close to what happened as possible. Because, honestly, I understand him, like, not wanting to tell his kids that in a moment of cowardness he cost them their mother. He probably hasn't even dealt with that himself. Much more, like, fucking whatever weird things telling the kids would do to him. But I also don't understand purposely telling the lie of I saw them rip her apart. That shows foresight of him trying to absolve himself of guilt.
Yep.
And that is the part where I lose respect for him, because he's not owning up to it and he's purposely misdirecting.
Yeah, he was manipulating this
if he had only done one or the other, I could have got behind him. But he's purposely misdirecting and not owning up to it.
He's the only one that lives, so he can manipulate the story however he feels free.
Yeah, or so he thinks. But he smudges the details. But I also like that while he's telling the story of the lie, he's remembering what really happened. We're getting flashbacks of what actually happened. So every time he tells a lie, it flashes to the beginning of the movie, and we see what actually happened.
Real quick, I want to go back to this. I know we touched on it already.
Please.
But before he talks to the kids about what happened, we do get that shot of Scarlett being upset with General Stone.
Yeah.
Because, she is the chief medical officer. There should be respect there that she is obviously not given. Mm-hmm. They didn't inform her of them letting minors in. She has several valid concerns that actually come into fucking play throughout this movie.
It is very ironic.
And the way that she shut
one
down.
Of those things.
I want to talk about the misogyny and the way that they shut her down.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, it's like, okay, if this was another lead scientist man, like medical researcher telling you this, you probably would have taken with a little bit more air caution. Probably still not respecting the medical research, because your fucking hubris is, we are the U.S. military.
You really can't have a zombie movie without having an American military that underestimates the threat. I don't even know if it's possible to make a zombie movie without having a very stupid American military that purposely doesn't listen to scientists trying to tell them what could go foobar, to use a term from later in this movie.
She straight up is like, look, dude, we don't know how this disease functions, so we don't know its ability to mutate, how it affects with minors.
It could come back.
I didn't think about that, but like in the first movie, did you recall seeing a child zombie in the first movie?
Yes, because he kills one in that restaurant, remember?
Oh, yeah.
And he doesn't tell anyone about it.
Okay,
But only one.
Okay.
Yeah, only the one. And obviously they wouldn't know about that.
Yeah. But, like, she's right. She doesn't know how it affects children. We don't know if it's mutated. We don't know where it's at in terms of, like, the contagious spread. And bringing in children is a bigger X factor. And, you know, of course, Stone, his response is, we won't let it come back. How do you know? Because we'll kill it. And you need to let this go.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's it? That's your hubris. That's your big...
The general has spoken.
Defeating statement.
Yeah,
like,
the general has spoken.
Yeah. I was like, you know, this gives General Thunderbolt Ross vibes.
Yeah, it's very stupid. Like, if the virus comes back, I'll shoot it. Like, you know, if you could protect yourself from a virus with bullets, we wouldn't have so many dead Republicans from COVID. Yeah. Sorry, I'm on fire.
Bravo.
Yeah, I'm on fire today.
I give you 2 for 2 on that one.
But back to just one more thing about the dad confession here. Confession again in quotation marks. The son asks, "Was there nothing you could do?" And the dad looks dead ass in his son and daughter's eyes and says, "No, there was nothing I could do." And that, for me, sealed his case.
You're a piece
Fuck
of shit.
This guy. Yeah.
And like, I think the whole determining factor is whenever, after they got that answer, Tammy finally kind of, I will say she did suspiciously look at him kind of questioningly. I don't know if you caught that, but maybe
I wasn't sure because
she
I'll be honest,
was like looking him up and down like, I don't know if I believe
Imogen Poots has a resting suspicious face.
True.
It's like resting bitch face, but she just always looks suspicious. I don't know. I just always get a suspicious vibe.
She looks like she's always questioning everything you say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so
later we'll find
says,
out that she listens to NoFX, so that all checks out.
But it's funny because when he gives her that answer, she looks and then she waits. She's like, "Well, I'm just glad you got out alive."
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, okay. At least they're so happy that
story.
I'm here."
Story.
Could have been a whole different story if she was like, "Well, I wish Mom would have made it."
Yeah.
I'd be like, "Ooh, deep cut."
Yeah. Well, I think it's equally a deep cut. Wasn't there anything you could do? Like, yeah, Andy. Actually, I was drinking a mojito and watching the whole thing while masturbating. Yeah, I guess I could have helped more. Like, the pain of it is that yes, there was more that he could do. But imagine your kid asking you that. Like, really? Could you put a little more effort in to save Mom? It's like, hey, fuck you, kid. I know you're my son, but fuck you.
Yeah. And alright, so this next scene,
is this our night copter pilot scene?
Yeah, I thought this was pretty funny.
This was great. This was a nice little break in the tension. Yeah,
a little bit of humor. So we get Captain Flynn, the helicopter pilot.
He's napping in his copter.
Yeah, we see a picture of his family and nice little like, "For you, Dad."
A little drawing of his copter and cartoon.
This man's listening to some DMX, trying to relax, get a little bit of like, what do you listen to fall asleep to?
Not DMX.
Yeah.
No offense. I love DMX. Not really a sleepy time. I listen to like lo-fi Legend of Zelda music, to be perfectly frank.
So he's trying to just get some shut-eye and a quick nappy nap.
Yeah.
And fucking Doyle just sneaks up on his ass and goes,
yeah.
Does a pretty good zombie impersonation.
Not a bad one.
Pretend like he's going to bite his neck. And you know what? I remember when I rewatched this, because I hadn't seen it so long, I was like, is this foreshadowing about what's going to happen to him? Never played out. I thought it would have been perfect foreshadowing for his character. It is
foreshadowing about what's going to happen in general, but not to these two.
yeah. I thought it was a nice little, like, it shows the depth of their friendship, the little quick camaraderie. So we established why the back and forth between them going forward is so important, because they're like, you're my best friend, you're my buddy, you're my fucking brother in arms.
Flynn does they do a very funny back and forth where Flynn says, I was having a dream about lying in bed with my wife, and Doyle was like, sorry, man, but I know how it is. I've also had that dream about lying in bed with your wife. I was like, da-da-da-da-da-da. Yeah. I was like, that is exactly how me and Goreship would be if we were in the military together.
It was great. I love that. It was a nice little sound. And then he goes back for a second time to fuck with him again. And he gets him both times.
I'll be honest, it also got me both times. I'm a sucker. Like, I'm a sucker for a good jump scare. But, then I call this section of the movie snipers or snoopers.
Okay, so I felt a little unsettled by this whole thing.
The snipers are bored, so they're saying what's on TV tonight, and by TV they mean the windows in the apartments that they're watching over.
They have no blinds to protect them because they need to be monitored by the government. In case there's an infection breaking out in their room and they can be sniped through a window. This was also a very neat way to get little bits about the characters. Like, you see Scarlett working late in the lab. You see Donald tucking the kids. They're jumping on the bed, and he's like, come on, guys, let's go to bed. And you're like, aw, family reunion. You get a couple having sex, which in Doyle's defense, he only looks at for a couple seconds. And then he keeps, and then you see the couple who's fighting.
Which I think is funny, because I'm like... He's like... So, if that's not what you were looking for, what are you looking for? And he's like, I'm just looking around.
You see a guy doing push-ups, you see a couple fighting, you see a couple having sex, you see not Doyle, but Don putting the kids to bed. Yeah. Then you see...
just a bald guy eating dinner, like, just
by himself,
whatever.
Watching TV, and then Doyle stops on Scarlett's, I keep calling the actor's name.
Rose Byrne,
stops on Scarlett's window and is just watching her. Now, I found this unsettling on how he just aimed his gun so laissez-blah at each window, and you have to keep watching the scene through the sniper scope. Yeah. Every time you look at a window, it's just got his crosshairs on their head. Yeah. I'm like, I get that.
I hope you have the safety on, man.
Yeah, that was one of my first thoughts. I was like, this is just unsettling at how fucking carefree he is about, like, aiming. Like, I was like, crosshairs are directly across all of their fucking heads. Every time you look at the scene. Yeah. Like, even the couple that's in bed, he's got the crosshairs trained directly on both their bodies where it would kill them.
Yeah. Well, it's a great metaphor for what happens later, because you can only... When you're that far away from people, the only way to see them is through the sniper scope, which means the only way you can see these people is as targets. It's the only way you can get close to them with your eyes. Makes more sense. And, like... I think it's chef's kiss, because later, what happens later?
Oh yeah, I understand.
I was just like...
He redeems himself in my eyes. Actually,
I
will say a lot of the soldiers redeem themselves, because none of them look happy to have to deal with that.
No, and a lot of them stop. Like...
to the detriment of themselves.
To the detriment of all of the world. Like, they make the right choice.
They even wind up getting attacked on. The snipers wind up getting attacked on their own rooftop.
Yeah, there's a scene later when they're like, less shooting. Sounds like they're winning. It's like, or there's less shooters.
Yeah. And so, like, that whole thing, like I said, it was just a little uncomfortable for me. I was like, man, it's just the easiness. I was like, because, there's soldiers out there who would really do that, no problem.
Oh, absolutely.
No questions asked.
Yeah. We cut to poor Andy. He's having a nightmare about his mom, which, understandable, right?
Bruh, she rips her face off.
She seems to have a bit of a face removal. But the irony is, when he wakes up, he gets into bed with his sister Tammy, and what he's worried about is he's not going to be able to remember his mother's face. So the ripping of the face off is him, like, trying to come to grips with the idea that in a couple years he won't know what she looks like, because he doesn't even have a picture of her. And Tammy, being the good big sister that she is like, well, we'll solve that shit. Like, I got a plan for that.
Yeah, so the next day, they wake up bright and early, and Tammy and Andy decide to break out for a little trip back home. Yeah. And they manage to sneak pretty good far away outside of the zone.
But Doyle sees them. Quite the Hawkeye, huh? Right? Sorry, I had to do one.
But it's funny. Nobody saw them or heard them, even when they were crossing on the bridge beams. Like, nobody, like, when they're directly on the bridge crossing over the really unsafe beams, there's two soldiers that they just quietly sneak behind. I was like, bro, this is video game level, like, Batman stealth.
It's like you have to sneak when the flashlight's looking that way. You have to go Metal Gear Solid it.
It's the sneak missions.
You should have a box over
Batman Arkham City. Yeah. And so finally, when they do get all the way across the bridge, Doyle sees them right as they made it to the other side. And he's like, hey, we got a couple of
loose... He tells Flynn, we
got a couple of loose ones. Loose dogs? No, puppies.
Yeah, and Flynn immediately knows what he means.
Yeah.
Then we get a scene of fucking Tammy being a stone-cold corpse robber. Man, what a badass.
So, I know... We got to see her be a little grossed out and freaked out by it, but I thought as an overall approach to it, she was way too chill being around, the stench of death and stealing from the dead. Yeah. She was a little bit too comfortable, because once she comes out, she acted like nothing happened. She's like, here's a helmet. I got keys.
She also gave him a helmet that was probably
a dead guy.
Had been, it rolled off, but yeah, at some point it had been on his head. Yeah.
He died.
He didn't take it off when he came inside. He was like, "What if some flying pizza dough comes at me? I got to keep the helmet on." I assume he had it like.
Also, for a second, when she left Andy outside by himself and he opened up that pizza box, I swear to God, I thought he was going to take that slice and try and bite into it. I don't know why.
Weird that there's pizza here, considering our short we'll talk about later. But yeah. Yeah. Tammy, I thought this was just her showing, like, her grit, because she's going to need it later. But for whatever reason, she's a badass and is able to get keys off a corpse. I'm not sure I could do that.
I could.
I don't know if I could. But she does. She gets the scooter keys. And
they're riding that little Vespa all throughout the town.
And then we get the thing I love in all these types of movies. We get our abandoned city shots. It's just this one scooter driving through London with nothing around. And I will never get tired of that. You could make a 2-hour movie of just a place where people ought to be and there not being people there, and I would watch the whole movie with a smile on my face. So this was great for me. Like I say, I love the fucking abandoned London shots.
But yeah, she did this sweet gesture of taking Andy all the way back to their abandoned home.
Yeah.
That way he could find stuff that they could remind them of their mother and get their personal belongings.
I was going to say, while they're here, they decide to get shoes and clothes, and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, you're here, why the hell not?
Yeah, instead of the bullshit that you were provided with back at the fucking apartment from the government.
And Tammy has a NoFX poster on her wall, and good on her for it.
Yeah, she's like, I want to take some music with me. I want some of my little trinkets. Andy put new shoes on.
Andy goes... And he's jumping up and down the trampoline outside and yelling for Tammy, which means that these two are not... They feel no danger.
Yeah.
They're like, they don't feel... And honestly, I wouldn't either. Like, from the opening, it's like 5 weeks into this, all the zombies were dead. This is like weeks and months after that. And they're telling me the only thing I got to worry about is bodies and rats? Yeah, I'm fine, thanks. I just won't...
Oh, and wild dogs.
Yeah, wild dogs. That I would be most worried about. But I also would think if I'm in the backyard and it's all fenced in, I can probably jump up down the trampoline and yell. Which Andy does.
And he goes inside looking for his sister because she's not answering his calls. And he's like, come out here and jump with me. And she's just not answering. So, he's like... Tammy, and she's not responding to anything. So he goes upstairs to what I presume is like their little attic.
Look like the attic space.
Yeah, it's like an attic room space, and you see in there it's fucking mess.
Yeah,
somebody was in there.
It looks like someone was living in there. Yeah,
and someone drew all over the wall crosses and drew.
Yeah, now this part
Tammy and Andy's name.
Super creepy. Yeah, super creepy.
And Andy only went in there because he heard noise coming from there, and he thought it was Tammy up there fucking around trying to get stuff out of the attic
or trying to scare him.
Yeah,
yeah.
And so when he goes in there, you see someone run behind the little like chest.
Yeah.
And Andy's like, Tammy, quit playing around, quit trying to scare me. And when he sees it, it's actually Mom, who's supposed to be fucking dead.
Yeah. Now,
but Mom is kind of feral.
I was trying to figure this one out too. Like when I first saw this movie, I was like, how is that possible? Like I couldn't. I was like, no. I saw her get body checked by a zombie, and they don't leave people this alive. Like not
intact,
possible.
Least,
yeah, not possible. Yeah, that whole scene was really good. Like, and it was terrifying because he's like, oh, I knew it. And she runs and she hugs him. And her mouth is right next to his neck. And the whole time, you as an audience member...
She's salivating. Yeah. Her teeth are kind of chattering. Like,
you as an audience member are like, she's getting ready to bite this fucking kid.
She's literally like, but her teeth go from chomping down like she's like resisting the urge to bite him.
Yeah.
To she starts screaming. Like,
and she's hugging him too tightly. He's like, Mom, you're hurting me. She's like squeezing him tighter and tighter while she's screaming and...
She's feral.
Yeah.
She is living in a constant state of fucking fear.
Yeah.
And those endorphins are flying high. And when she sees her son, like, I think that final break in reality, she's like, oh, like she kind of lets loose.
Oh, yeah.
And so she's screaming. And that scares Andy.
Yeah.
Andy's terrified.
Andy pushes off and runs away.
To go find Tammy.
And she says, no, wait, come back. She's capable of speech.
Yes,
this is not a feral, or it's not one we're familiar with. This is weird. This is uncharted territory. And of course the army fucking arrives to heavy-handed fuck it all up, as they do.
Yeah, I will say Flynn
and company show up, and Flynn tells Doyle,
I found your puppies.
It's a very cute scene. But yeah, the Army finds this lady and fucking takes her back to base and puts her in a shower while she's screaming in pain and agony and freaking out.
This type of scene, you know, the government cleansing process where they hose you down and violently scrub you. We've seen it a lot of movies.
While refusing to talk to you or try and calm you down in any way while you're freaking out.
We've seen it in a lot of movies, right?
Indeed.
You know, like V for Vendetta is one that really stands out for me with Natalie Portman.
Yeah.
One of my favorite Michael J. White films, Bare Knuckle Fighter. He goes to the same thing. Like, it's just fucking abusive seeing these shower scenes, government shower scenes.
Hard to watch.
This one was a very harsh one because not only is she still trying to, like, I'm giving her more humanity than the government is, obviously. She is fucking crying, breaking down. Like, she doesn't know what's... Like, her grip of reality is all but
tenuous.
Like, her psyche is fractured because she's been surviving for the last fucking, like, what was it? 28 weeks, 5 months?
Yeah.
Since this shit happened to her.
Yeah.
And she has been alone thinking that everyone she knew was dead. She thought Dawn was dead. She probably thought the fucking her kids
and
were
her
dead.
last time with him was him slamming a door in the
Betrayal,
face.
yes. Yeah. So, like, it's hard as fuck seeing them just, like, treat her like not a human.
Yeah. Well, she was this close to getting her, quote unquote, getting her kids back.
Yeah.
And then the military's taken her.
Now, credit where credit is due, once the terrible fucking cleansing process is done, Scarlett does apologize to her.
Yeah.
While she's examining her.
They strap her to a table, and Scarlett's like, look, we haven't had... This is normal procedure, but we haven't had to do it in weeks and weeks and weeks because... You know what? Let me cut to the chase. How did you survive?
And she doesn't really remember, and she's
not talking much.
Yeah. She just kind of looks at her like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And there's some type of discoloration with her eye that has the brown iris.
Yeah. Which Scarlett clocks immediately.
They're like broken blood vessels.
Yeah.
Or are they? They're actually the fucking vessels that are part of the rage virus.
Yeah.
Scarlett, when she's wiping her down, notices there's clearly a bite scar on her arm. She's been bitten. She has been bitten by an infected.
Have you been in contact with the infected? And I believe this was when Scarlett says, I want to see my kids. Because I think that's all she says, right? She says, I don't know, and she has a brief flashback to her running in the woods.
Yeah. You see how she survived.
Yeah.
You see the quick glimpse of her fucking running out of the house, bloodied. The child she was protecting is gone. We assume that child was
eaten.
Her main jacket that she was wearing, gone.
Yeah.
You just see her in a long sleeve shirt with her arm bleeding, trying to run after the same route that fucking Dawn took.
Yeah. Sorry, boat's gone.
Yeah, all you see is her running and keep running, and then it flashes back to her just being like, where are my kids?
Yeah, I want to see my kids.
Scarlett takes her blood.
Scarlett says, of course. But it takes her blood first.
And she wants to run the blood work, and of course, she's right. When Scarlett runs the blood work, she sees that Alice has the infection in her, but because of some genetic abnormalities in her blood and in her genes, it creates this immunity. So that fucking
Scarlett's like this
two different eye things.
Yeah.
What did I say?
Might be connected to that.
The heterochromia is basically what serves as a genetic mutation to give her an immunity. She is still a carrier. She is technically infected. She can infect others. But, like all good science movies, her blood can be reverse engineered to be a cure-all.
And Scarlett is excited about this. General Stone, not so much. And I'll be honest, at this point, I was kind of on General Stone's side, because I was like, yeah, we don't need a cure. Everyone that had this is dead. So, like, we honestly need to set her on fire and be done with this, because keeping her alive to engineer a cure for something that isn't a threat unless she is alive seems like a counterintuitive
And this is the
thing.
Duality of it, because both sides are right and wrong at the same time.
Yeah.
So, as you said, you're understanding Sergeant General Stone's side. All right. So Scarlett's side, I understand because, like, bro, you need that blood. Her blood is so valuable. Even if you killed her after we drained her of all her blood, we could use her blood.
Which is what Stone offers. He's like, well, you can study her corpse.
But she realizes, like, well, we have our kids, but this genetic trait could skip or vanish completely.
Yeah.
So even though her son Andy has the same exact heterochromia like her, which
it doesn't guarantee
they never say that the eye thing is what it is.
Yeah.
But you as a viewer are left to determine, hey, mom has the eye thing, son has the eye thing. It's got to be connected.
Right.
And so Scarlett obviously knows this, and she lets the audience know by being like, hey, yes, her children still exist, and one of them has the same genetic trait with the eyes, but it doesn't mean it's guaranteed that we could get the same results from his blood.
Yeah.
We need
also,
hers.
there's the moral imperative is like, we need to let this woman see her kids and be reunited with her husband. Like, we need to put this family back together.
But Stone says that's impossible. If she's infected, we can't have anyone go near her.
Yeah.
And right on fucking cue, Dawn has learned that their mother is alive. And the kids are pissed. Kids are fucking...
First of all, I love the scene where an army soldier comes up to Dawn and he's like, we found your kids. He's like, oh, thank God. He's like, we found your wife too. And the expression on his face, he should have got a fucking Academy Award for. Because the look on his face of just like, what? Am I happy? Like, I have no idea how to feel about that. Also, I must have misheard you. Because ain't no way you just said you found my wife too. But yes, you are correct. He goes to reunite with his kids, and they are understandably upset.
They're very pissed. They're like, you lied. You fucking lied. You said mom was dead, that you saw her die. He's like, kids, I never said those exact words.
Yeah.
They're like, no, you said she was torn to pieces.
This is his, where the lie completely falls apart. Because he starts by saying, I didn't say that. And then he ends up owning it and saying, well, if I said that, that's because that's what I saw. It was all very confusing and it was chaotic.
It all happened so fast.
Yeah. And I'm like, you can't say I never said that and then 30 seconds later say, well, I said that because that's what happened. It's like,
it's what a gaslighter does. It's what a gaslighter does.
Yeah, 30 seconds ago you said you didn't say that. You can't now double down on owning that because you just denied it 30 seconds ago. So yeah, now Andy might still be a little on the fence, but fucking Tammy is completely switched sides.
She's like, you're dead to me, Dad.
Yeah.
You could have saved mom and you were a coward.
Yeah. Man.
And of course, after Don basically gets the shit show from his kids and the grief that he so rightfully deserves, Scarlett, once again goes back to the importance.
This is when she talks. Yeah, she's talking to Stone.
Alice's blood. Do you know how much her life is worth? Do you know how much her blood is of value to your life, my life don't mean shit compared to hers right now.
And Stone's like,
no, we're gonna
study her corpse. We're gonna kill her.
Yeah, he straight up says, I will go code red and put this whole facility on lockdown if you don't do what I say.
Yeah.
He straight up was like, you have one of two options. Either you do it my way, or I'm just gonna pull the fucking code, and we're all gonna have to just kill a bunch of
things are gonna get crazy.
And of course,
while this is happening,
Don decides to go take a trip to go see Alice.
He's got to go talk to Alice and make sure that the story's straight.
Yep.
I honest to God think...
No, he just wants forgiveness. He's like, you got to understand why I did what I did,
I think he wants forgiveness, and I do think he genuinely wants to see his wife again. But I also think there's a big part of this is like, we need to get a story straight for the kids, or they're never going to talk to me again. So Don,
which I still don't respect either way.
No, it's garbage.
Yeah.
Like, what I say is the worst reason to go talk to your thought dead wife to tell her to lie to the kids about me. But yeah, Donald is using all that security clearance we talked about earlier to get to his wife. And he does, because he walks by a couple guards, like he's got the run of the place as predicted. And he gets in there and immediately starts apologizing.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm scared. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I love you. Da 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 da.
And this is spliced back and forth with, the revelation from Scarlett to Commander Stone that, bro, she's still a carrier.
Yeah.
And as she says it, like, it's still in her blood and can be transmitted through saliva.
Yeah.
Dawn, being forgiven by Alice, she says, I still love you, Dawn. Yeah. I forgive you. They kiss passionately, and they mingle their fucking saliva in the most disgusting. Whoopsie. And immediately after they kiss and swap spit, Dawn realizes the infection is hitting him as he's kissing her.
Yeah.
And it almost reminds me of the scene from X-Men where when Rogue is kissing, I think it was Wolverine in the first one, to steal his powers, and he realizes what's happening, and it just like starts sucking.
And he's trying to pull off. Yeah.
He pulls away from her and starts vomiting up all of his fucking guts and blood, and immediately starts changing. Fucking poor Alice, dude. She is stuck.
She is tabled.
She's
literally
strapped to the table, defenseless.
And Donald kills her. But he does the thumbs in the eye, which is, number one, the 28 days infected. That's a common thing that they do. Like, they did in the first movie, too. Like, taking each thumb and going for the eyes. But here it felt like it had more symbolism, because it felt like Donald couldn't stand her eyes on him.
And he ripped her throat out with his bare teeth.
Yeah, like he couldn't stand the guilt that he felt when he looked into her eyes. And also, of course, these are the eyes that represent the cure, right? Mm-hmm. The two miscolored eyes. So yeah, Donald's flipping out while Stone is decides it might be Code Red time.
And he's so right for going Code Red when he decides to over it, because if
it's already too late, but still, A for effort.
I mean, I normally wouldn't side with him, but given the circumstance of what was transpiring at the same exact moment, him not listening to her and going Code Red anyways was the right move.
Yeah.
And it's hard to swallow that pill, because it's like you don't want him to be right.
Although
you have no choice but to acknowledge that him ignoring her was the right call.
I will say this. I don't know whose idea it was to make part of Code Red having strobing lights and red lights and a bunch of fucking light problems to unnerve everybody.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what won't calm people down? Blood red lights and strobing lights on the steps. That's not going to help people stay calm. Why are you fucking doing this? Oh, and when you get them all into the parking garage, turning off all the lights and then turning on a couple of like just emergency lights? Are you trying to cause a riot?
This is part of what I was discussing earlier when I was talking about why I didn't like this movie as much in terms of the film style.
Mm-hmm.
This becomes a repetitive thing all throughout the rest of this movie with I kept calling the frenzy.
Mm-hmm.
So every time a frenzy breaks out, it does this weird fucking slow motion running camera thing where like you see Dawn in a POV perspective attack a soldier, and it's like really slow-mo, and then it blinks, and then it cuts away, and there's another soldier being attacked, and then it pans out, and everyone's just kind of in slow-mo screaming. I just didn't like it. It was off-putting visually. It didn't help me. Mm-hmm. It didn't make me feel the panic. It made me feel like
queasy?
This is just not... I was like, this is like unsettling to watch in the sense that it doesn't visually appeal.
Okay.
Like, if you would have had the chaotic camera, like, really fast, like, oh my god, I can't tell what's happening, that is more unsettling and panicky than you slowing down the camera and showing, like, small...
That is definitely more what they did in the first movie as well. The first movie was a lot more jerky,
and
fast
I think that's
camera.
where the disconnect for me was, is that the frenzy made it feel more real-time, almost like 28 Days Later had a more real-time encapsulation of what the adrenaline rush would be like to be stuck in the middle of that, because of how quick the camera jumps were and how rushing everything was. Whereas this one, it felt too 90s.
Okay.
And when I say that, 90s movies that do like the slow motion horror sequence where it's supposed to be really gory and bloody, like I think about that scene in Blade where they're all in the blood dance club and it all of a sudden slows down where they're dancing in blood.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be like a horror revelation of the one human that there's like, oh my god, these are vampires.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with this fucking effect. And I don't know if it was just a directorial choice, but I think it was the bad choice to keep doing this all throughout the rest of the movie when it comes to the zombie attacks. Even when they break out and they're running through the city, there's scenes where they're slowly running. I'm like, that's not as scary as you want it to be. It's just...
I thought
it's annoying. It was annoying me visually. It was not tasteful. It didn't appeal to my visual appetites for cinema. That's the way I can diagnose that.
Okay.
That did not appeal to me visually in my appetite. I expect this movie, because of being the 28 Days Later franchise, to give me that scary, panicky, oh my god, overload.
Yeah.
Which they did a great job with.
Yeah.
In the first one. And maybe...
But it wasn't a franchise yet. This was a...
If it's a sequel, you're establishing a franchise.
Well, right. But at this point, you are establishing. So, like... now there is a franchise, so you have to take from the first and second movie,
and hope
and whatever is in both of those movies is part of the franchise, like as opposed to like directorial choices. I actually I
definitely need a franchise to be a sequel. I mean, you don't need a sequel to be a franchise because look at Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice is a franchise. And
it had a cartoon. Man, that cartoon was great.
Yeah, but
and toys.
It's not technically like I don't even know the cartoon's canon to the movie. Time.
Oh, I wonder.
But
well, I guess we'll know when the next
20
one comes
years
out.
later, you finally, or longer than 20 years. Fuck's sake.
Yeah, it's been long.
It's been like 30 years.
It could be argued too long. We'll see.
And you're getting a sequel, and like yes, it's part of the Beetlejuice franchise that's already been established. And after all these years, you finally get a sequel.
Yeah.
28 days later, established this big fucking like love for that film, and they're like, oh, there's so much praise and income being generated from the aftermarket sales of like the VHS copies and DVD copies because that's how fucking old it was when that was still a thing. That they're like, all right, let's capitalize off of it. 5 years later, maybe a little bit too late, maybe towards the end of the tail end of the zombie craze. Fuck it, let's capitalize.
Yeah.
I think that they shit the bed on it. They lost the vision. They lost the vision of what made 28 Days Later so special as a new take of zombie, that they kind of muddled it down with this by trying to be too retrospective with the film style. They were trying to do too much of that niche early 2000s cinematography. You know what I mean?
I could see that. I was not like as bothered by it as you were, but I can definitely understand why someone would be bothered by it.
I think,
and I don't even have a defense for it in a way that like, well, I liked it more because of this. Like, I liked it. It was fine.
It bugged me.
It wasn't as good as the first one. It's like the action scenes, except I will say the sniping scene we're coming up on, I thought was amazing. But the rest of the action scenes were not as good.
That's the only time that added drama to it.
Yeah. The action scenes were not as good. I absolutely can sign off on that.
There was a lot that was lost on that in terms of like.
This was just an artistic choice.
Yeah,
that did not appeal to you artistically.
Yeah, and it didn't
like a Jason Pollock to someone who thinks that he's just spattering paint on a canvas and it's
Anybody can make a Jackson Pollock. I'll fucking fight on that one. I mean, as a former art major study, I wholeheartedly disagree with my fine arts class that Jackson Pollock is fucking true art because it was literally just I could jerk off in my hand and throw it at a canvas and that's a Jackson Pollock.
I do not have a dog in that race. I do not have the passion one way or the other to have an opinion on Pollock. Kind of sorry I brought it up. I did not know I was opening wounds on you, Goreship. That was not my intent.
Damn it. Anyways.
Yeah, Scarlett is trying to get the kids out because she realizes that they are, now that the mom has been taken by Stone. I don't think she knows that the mom's dead yet, but she knows Stone is going to kill the mom. These kids are the last option for developing a cure. Fucking Code Red goes into effect, and she knows the 3 steps of Code Red. We'll go into them a bit later. She's like, all right, well, fuck. I gotta get these kids out of here. Unfortunately, Andy gets separated from Scarlett and Tammy.
She was a great headshot, though.
She was
great with that gun. When it came in clutch, she fucking
when she rescues them from a zombie, right through the
and it was the soldier who just like not even 2 minutes or prior.
I'll be right back.
Yeah, he comes back in, fucking infected.
Kid's not a liar. Yeah, he came right back.
Yeah, and so she busts him out, and I did find that a little. That was a little bothersome, like how easily they were separated.
Yeah.
But I think the other part that was really unsettling is the fact that they were separating the personnel to like a good separate spot, and then taking all the civilians and putting them in the fucking basement and literally locking them in.
It looked like a parking garage. They were in a parking garage.
It looked like
that was what it appeared. It was, again, because part of Code Red is making sure no one has enough light to see by. I don't know for sure, but it looked like a parking garage. But wherever it was, they locked them in for their safety. But apparently there was a whole nother door they completely
multiple entrances. And I was like, the part that got me is when they're like, this is for your own protection.
Yeah. And
says the abuser.
And people are like, I don't feel like it is.
Yeah, and of course, Andy breaks away from everybody who's fucking screaming and panicking.
Yeah.
And honest to God, dude, if somebody could have just kept the people in check from stopping them from fucking screaming, they maybe would have been able to communicate, hey, there's somebody fucking here trying to kill us all, and they probably could have stopped it.
Yeah, because it was 1,000 to 1. If they had all teamed up, they could have probably beaten up Don, who comes in from the other door.
Does he have fucking magical powers? Because, brother, there are several instances in this movie where Don is a goddamn fae.
Yeah.
I'm like, how do you keep doing this, Don?
I kind of wonder, there's at least one scene where I wonder if Andy even really saw him. Because he disappears so quick. I'm like, hey,
yeah, well,
Andy has just had a lot of near-death experiences with his dad, so I think some of the times we're seeing this from Andy's point of view, and he's just seeing Don everywhere, in the same way he had nightmares about his mom. I think he is just fucking visualizing Don where he isn't. There's one scene in particular coming up.
Well, of course.
But
Don,
here he definitely is.
Yeah, Don breaks through that side door.
Don gets in the garage.
And he infects one person, which infects another, and then the frenzy
because you have them all clumped together like a smartass. Like Andy very wisely takes the high road and goes out like a ventilation vent that's like partially collapsed.
Yeah, he climbs
on the car and up into the air ducts, which, good on. Like, God, smart. Scarlett is trying to use the radio to tell the armed guards to keep an eye out for Andy, but she gets overridden by Stone, who is saying,
kill everyone. All moving objects are a target now.
Well, at first he's telling them to only target contaminated, and I'm like, yeah, good fucking luck with that.
Tell them, like, we can't see who's infected until it's too late.
They can only shoot them when they stop to feed on somebody. And they're like, all right, well, those four.
Then you have to kill two people. You have to kill a person being bitten and the person that's doing the fighting.
Although I will give credit, good ass snipers, because every time it did this, like, they were doing well. But of course,
when they got too much, that's when Stone said, "Actually, you know what? Just kill everything that moves."
Yeah, and for me, this sniper scene, it surprised me with how much like heartbreak and high drama there was with these fucking soldiers having to decide, like, do I obey orders? And like, for me, this part was like the best. Actually, the only action scene I really liked in the whole movie. Except for the opening sequence was pretty good.
I like the helicopter scene.
Oh yeah, that's like like the choppy scene.
Yeah, that's
like 20 seconds, but it was good.
Hey,
yeah, I mean, it was good. You are correct. But I love the sniper scene. Like this, like this
had the emotion. It gave you intensity. It gave you emotion.
Because you see them trying to pick targets, and even when he says open fire on everybody, they're still trying to pick their targets, and it's just a heartbreak because even Doyle is like. Repeat that order? Did I hear that right?
He's like, there's got to be another way. There's got to be another way.
And there isn't.
He's like, and he straight up says, like, this isn't right. This isn't right, man.
And what causes him to stop firing is he sees Andy, who has crawled out of the vent onto the road. Because, again, this was underground, like a parking garage or a basement or something. He crawls out of the vent onto the street, and he's, like, panicked. And Doyle starts like sniping for him. So he's like following the kid, and anytime an infected gets near him, he's like shooting those infected. And some guy is yelling for Andy to come to him.
Yeah.
And
he's a doctor. He said he was a doctor.
He's bringing in people that are trying to get out from sniper fire into, it looks like where the food stores are.
Yeah.
Another way too dark warehouse that they turned all the lights off because that's part of Code Red, I guess. But Andy gets reunited with his sister and Scarlett, so that part's good.
Yeah, that worked out. Out. And of course,
this is where Scarlett breaks down Code Red, which is step 1, kill the infected. Step 2, containment. Step 3, if you cannot contain, kill everybody. And they are on step 3 if you hadn't guessed by now.
Yeah, so right before Doyle abandons post, he notices, fuck it, it's spread too far. We didn't kill enough of them. They've broken past our barricades.
Yeah, he sees one of his sniper guys get it. They're on the roof now.
Yeah, the zombies have broken out onto other parts of the roof.
Yeah.
He's watching his one dude, because he notices that one of the guys stopped shooting. He looks over and he sees him screaming, but this time not out of anguish for having to fucking commit murder.
Because he's getting attacked.
Yeah, and so Doyle's like, fuck, we're overrun. I'm out.
Yeah. So, Doyle gets the fuck out and makes it to this food locker.
And they're like, what are you doing here? And they're like, weren't you just shooting us? I did think that was a little funny that they called him out about that. He's like, well, I'm here now, aren't I? So
yeah,
he's like, I'm doing the same thing you're doing.
Yeah, Scarlett's like, why'd you abandon your post? And Doyle's like, why'd you abandon yours? And I'm like, great, good points all. Good points all. Let's get the fuck out. And Doyle's like, I know you think staying here is a good idea, but they're going to eventually come through this warehouse and shoot all of you.
Yeah, he's got this little attachment to these kids, though.
It's night. It's the cover of dark. We can get out right now if we go. Yeah.
His whole driving motive is to protect these kids, which, just like Scarlett, she's also trying to protect these kids. But Scarlett's motivation is from the medical side of it because she's like, all right, these kids could have savior in their blood.
Yeah, and now it's much more important because it seems we have another outbreak on our hands.
She straight up tells Doyle, she's like, their mom, who is now dead, could have helped reverse this, and that means that because she's gone, they're the only genetic markers left of her that could potentially save us, and we don't even know that either one of them has it. Yeah. But we have to take the chance. We have to make sure that their lives are more valuable than ours. Yeah. That's why she wants to risk everything. So Doyle takes a group of like 5 out. Most of the people stay in there, which R.I.P. because I'm sure they didn't make it. Yeah, so. But a few go with Doyle, including, of course, the kids and Scarlett. And one other guy, a red shirt in Star Trek terms. Oh yeah, and a woman too. She won't be there long. But red shirt, a couple of red shirts to put it in Star Trek terms. They go out. Doyle gets in contact with Flynn, who gives him an extraction point. He's like, I'll pick you up in the copter. Get here. Yeah. But you need to get here quick. You got to get because they're getting ready to firebomb. You've got 4 minutes. They're going to firebomb the entire fucking Dog Island. Like, this is it. Like 4 minutes and you guys are getting fucking napalmed.
Yeah. And as soon as they start running, the woman gets shot. And
one of the other guys,
Scarlett, gets a shot in the leg too. Did that other guy also get like a side wound, like a belly shot or something?
The one guy got shot through the back. The bald-headed guy. Yeah, he got shot through the back. The one got shot through the head, and then the guy that was with the woman, he hid behind her, and is the reason why Scarlett got shot in the leg because Scarlett was like, "Go, go!" and she tried pushing him in front of the way, and she got shot. Yeah, and so I like this. This. Not at all a zombie movie thing, but I always like the sniper versus sniper fights, like in movies. Saving Private Ryan.
Saving Private Ryan did it best, but like I love this. Like, okay, someone's got to be a target, and I'll Doyle's like, he'll miss, I won't. And while they're arguing, the same guy is arguing he's not going to be a target. Like fucking Andy.
Fuck it, serpentine.
Yeah, fucking Andy decides to be the target. And Doyle's like, oh shit, Andy, you could have warned me, Andy.
And he manages to kill the guy. Yeah. I do like the fact that Doyle points out, like, hey, he's not a marksman, he's just a guy with a gun. Yeah. He's not going to be focused, he's panicking. He's like, I am a marksman. I am a good shot. Like, so once he's distracted, I can take him out. Yeah. And this is the weird scene where Andy sees his dad for just a second, like standing and watching them all walk by. And then Doyle walks in front of him.
And then he's gone.
Yeah.
And
I was like, is he magic?
That was him hallucinating. That's my guess. Man. And they have to jump a fence to get out, which I imagine had to suck for Scarlett with her hurt leg. And then we get our big firebomb scene.
Which I think that's where all the production money went, was fucking doing this explosion scenes.
Yeah, and I was like, I guess fine. Like what? Like that seemed unnecessary, but so be it.
And this is what we were talking about earlier, where after giving the fucking firebomb instruction, General Stone has to sit with himself and reflect.
Literally, because he plops into a chair. Yeah. All the energy is out of him,
and they just leave him alone. They let him just soak in what he had to do and live with that weight.
Yeah, you see them kind of taking off their headpieces and shaking their head. Because like, no one's happy about this. This isn't. There's no gleeful army dude who's like, oh, just love killing. Like that cliche. Much like in 28 Days Later. There's no cliche villain like that because that's stupid. Yeah. And here, Stone has to sit with it. And it's even worse because the next thing they see is the zombies kicking the gate down, and you find out that Stone made this horrible sacrifice and it wasn't even effective.
Like it's still handful still got out.
Imagine that because kind of deal.
You watch on the surveillance
sacrifice
cameras
for nothing. Ugh.
like you said, sacrifice for nothing as it feels like, because before Stone sits down, they watch the firebomb happen, and you see all these civilians, not even infected, civilians trying to outrun the flames.
Yeah.
And then you see them get engulfed by the flames, and then every single one of their fucking surveillance cameras is taken out because they're melted and scorched all the high hell and destroyed.
Yeah.
And so once those all go blacked out, they've got nothing to monitor.
Yeah.
That's why they take their shit off, because they, in solidarity with Stone, have to reflect on what's happened and sit in a moment of silence.
Yeah.
And then when they have one camera left on the entrance, they're like, "Oh, motherfucker!"
Yeah, there's still a handful that get out. Great.
Yeah. But
meanwhile, our group reaches the park where the extraction's going to go, and it looked like a little like temporary fair had been set up there. There's like an old fair wagon and some old rides.
And it was like an abandoned circus is what it looked like, because there was a carousel, there was a strongman thing, there was cages for animals.
Fair, circus, yeah, that kind of...
Well, the animal cage is what really threw me off.
Yeah.
I was like, was this a circus or something?
But, yeah, they'd set up in this park, and it's interesting because you get parallel conversations. Doyle and Scarlett are having a conversation at the same time that Andy and Tammy are having a conversation. Andy and Tammy are talking about, like, no matter what happens, we stick together. And Scarlett is, at this point, explaining the importance of the kids to Doyle and how it's more important than all of our lives. And Doyle is like, yeah, okay, understood. And Doyle's not like, fuck you, lady, I'm not going to die for these. He immediately is on board. Like, I understand.
Yeah.
You're telling me how important these kids are. I'm on board.
Yeah.
And I was like, good on you, Doyle. Like,
and Tammy is the reason why she's emphasizing so much of the whole, like, we stick together.
Yeah.
Because, just prior to that, before they had to run for their lives again, Andy had let them know, like, I saw Dad, he's one of them.
Yeah. And she's like, well, I thought I lost you. We've lost Mom and Dad. Because he said, do you think Mom's going to come back again? And Tammy's like, not this time. And he's like, well, I saw Dad, he's one of them. So now it's just the two of them. And Tammy had already almost lost Andy, so she's like, "Yeah, I'm not losing you again. We stay together."
Our fifth wheel guy, he was like looking through the ice cream truck trying to find something to snack on.
I thought that guy was going to get eaten right then. I thought something was going to grab him from the ice cream truck.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping.
Again, red shirt. This dude is obviously very expendable. Very funny conversation with Flynn. He's like, Doyle, I'm on the way. I'm almost there, but. Some infected have broken out.
And they're heading your way.
Yeah, and they're about 60. And he's like, 60 minutes away? He's
60
like, 60 seconds.
Bro.
And I'm like, fuck!
And I was like, I thought to myself, bro, even all the way the fuck out here, away from where they were, they still can't escape the infected quick enough.
No.
And like...
And that's where I wrote, this blue shirt guy has to die, right? And sure enough, yeah, he's getting ready to.
You see... just like this
even Floyd
wall,
hates this blue shirt guy.
This little wall of like people starting to slowly come through the tall grass, and luckily Doyle's like, all right, everybody get down. So they try and hide in the tall grass to try and get past them.
Yeah.
And right as they're hiding, Flynn flies over, kind of giving their cover away.
Yeah.
Which prompts the infected to start.
Well, we also know they respond to sound, so
so they were gung ho
since he's flying over them, they're going to go in that direction. Yeah.
And this is
which would not be a problem if Doyle was alone.
Yeah.
Because Flynn would have just swung down, poke him up, problem solved. But Flynn's like, hey, Doyle, quick question. Who the fuck are all those people with you? Yeah. And why in the world do you think I'm going to pick them up?
They're coming with me, it's not an option.
And Flynn's like, if I bring them back to base, we will get shot out of the sky. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I don't want to go back to base. I want you to take us across the river and get us the fuck out of all of this mess. And Flynn's like, no, not going to do that. But he's too low when he says that. And Blue Shirt runs and
get me out of here!
Grabs onto his bar. And Flynn, who, much like me, really hates this blue guy, just starts taking him on a fucking helicopter ride.
Trying to swing him to get him off. Like, get the fuck off my ride,
It's very funny. But Flynn also takes care of these fucking... zombies with some awesome helicopter work.
He does the cool little nifty trick that you see in some movies where he tilts the helicopter down just low enough to fucking use the blades as like a lawnmower effect. And he gets awesome. a good chunk of them. Yeah. He doesn't get all of them, but he still gets a good chunk while the others manage to get it slip by him and still chase after Doyle and the kids.
Yeah. And Floyd's like, all right, well, this pickup is compromised. Now I need you to go to the stadium, and you better be alone because we're not doing this shit again.
Do you think Blue Shirt Guy lived? Because he manages to fling them off.
No, he lands in a pile of dead. Like, you get a quick shot of them swarm him. So
okay.
unless he pulls Alice and somehow he's immune and comes back later.
I think visually
I didn't see his eyes, so who knows? But yeah, I'm pretty sure he got aided.
I just remember him getting flung off. I didn't remember if he got taken.
Yeah, I think he has lunch. But yeah, new plan, meet at the stadium. Doyle says, well, I am bringing everybody, so you're going to pick us up because I know you're a good guy. We'll see you at the stadium.
He's like, fuck it. And so
Flynn does not answer. so we're kind of left up in the air if Flynn's even going to be there or not. Because Doyle says this, Flynn says nothing.
Yeah. Radio just goes silent. So they keep running towards it, and they are still being pursued. Still fucking being chased. And the kids fall down, and they're so tired, they're so exhausted. And Doyle's like, I know you're tired, buddy, but we gotta go.
Yeah. And he's like, I'm tired too. And I was like, oh, he'd make a good dad.
And he shoots a couple more of infected to try and give them a little bit more time.
Yep. And then we get the gas scene.
Yeah. So, right before Flynn disappeared off the comm, the radio signal came through saying authorized use of chemical weapons.
Yep. Chemical hazmat crews en route.
And so they're throwing nerve gas through the streets.
They're gassing the streets and then following behind with flamethrowers to immediately incinerate the bodies.
So when they first see the gas, the kids think, oh, it's a smoke bomb. And immediately Doyle's like, that's not smoke. Get in the car. Get in the car. Yeah. Close all the vents.
Doyle saves their ass there. Some zombies are beating on the door, but the infected immediately succumb to this gas.
Which, as you said earlier, is an interesting take.
Yeah, I was like, okay. Well, I mean, I don't think it was ever addressed in 28 Days Later, so it's perfectly a valid thing. And it does separate them, as you said, from zombies. Like, these aren't zombies, they're infected, it's different. It's like, yeah, I guess so. But yeah, we get our sad Doyle sacrifice scene, and I hate it. I hate it.
I was like, the hero's dying death. Doyle decides, hey, this car's not going to get started on its own. I've got to fucking get out and push it.
Get out and push.
He sees the other soldiers coming with a flamethrower, setting the bodies on fire as quick as they can.
Yeah.
And he knows, shit, if they catch up to us...
If the gas doesn't get me, they will. So I'm fucked regardless.
He knows that the soldiers will kill all of them in the car, even if they don't show signs of infection.
Yeah.
Their orders are kill everything in sight.
And Scarlett said the kids are more important than him, and
he leaves his rifle behind for her.
Yep.
He says, I'll see you at the stadium.
Aww.
And he gets out and starts pushing, tells her to kick the clutch. The car kicks on, and right as the car kicks on, he's shot from the back with a flamethrower and engulfed in flames.
And I'm like, man, Tammy and Andy probably didn't need to see that. They've been cursed enough. Like, that's just more nightmares.
It's an incendiary death, so it's very sad to watch it happen.
Yeah.
Visually, it was shocking. Like, you're like, oh my god, I'm watching this hero that just saved these kids give up his life by his own people. His own soldiers are fucking killing him.
Yeah. Yeah, it broke my heart. I was very...
And the kids actually saw it.
Watching their eyes, I was like, oh man, they don't need more reasons to have nightmares, but yeah.
More than they already are going to. Their PTSD is going to be through the roof.
Yeah, luckily Scarlett also just knows where things are in the city. Just like... I'm like, man... Everyone's so good at navigating.
If you're stationed there long enough, I assume you become like if you were driving through Nara, I'm sure you would fucking know your way around after living there for 11 years.
Yeah. But I will tell you, she's good at directions in the city. Bad at directing people in the dark.
Bruh, she did some GTA style driving though to get away from that helicopter that was shooting at her.
She was amazing. Yeah.
I will give her props where props is due. She drove the fuck out of that Volvo.
And finally takes them into a subway tunnel to get away from the helicopter.
Well, it's weird. It's apparently it's a thing over there. It's part of the stadium complex, right? It's part of the underground parking stadium that connects you from the parking to the sports complex, that you take a little subway ride to the underground of the stadium where apparently they have their own little subway platform.
Makes more sense than trying to have a 7-mile wide parking lot.
I didn't know that was a thing, but apparently there's also stops like that in other places.
Oh yeah, like the Barclays Center in Brooklyn?
Yeah, I didn't know that was a thing until this
There is no parking at the Barclays Center.
You just ride a train.
You come in by subway.
Yeah, you ride a train, get into into the underground, and then that's where you pay your admission. Yeah, I didn't know that was a thing, but apparently there's also...
In the cities, you have to.
There's a place like that in Japan, I forget, somewhere in...
There's a few.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, honestly, the Sumo Dome, where
that's what
I watched the wrestling. Yeah, they fucking... Jesus Christ. They
have a metro stop underneath the actual...
because you can't... Like, if you look in Charlotte, like, the parking lot around the auditoriums, like, adds another 7 miles to how big that auditorium is. You can't do that in the city. You've got to have another way. And so, yeah, this makes a lot of sense in downtown London. But what happens is, it's dark down there, as you would expect. So, so Scarlett uses the night vision scope to try and direct Andy and Tammy. And Jesus, she's so bad at it.
They're just walking down this escalator filled with dead bodies and trash.
And she's trying to not have them step on a dead body. I get that. But the way she doesn't seem to understand that they can't see anything. So when she suddenly yells, Tammy, move to the right. Tammy thinks there's a zombie getting ready to eat her.
Yeah, well, to be fair, Tammy is screaming the entire time that they're walking down. She's the moment they start stepping down, she's panicking. She's not acting calm and collected.
She is not, but neither is Scarlett.
Yeah, Scarlett doesn't fucking help with that scenario.
Yeah, and unfortunately, because of everyone yelling at each other, everyone falls down the escalator. Like, there's this long escalator, and they all end up at the bottom. Now, this is the part that bothered me.
Alright, so we both were bothered by this part.
I do not understand how they got separated. I was so confused.
I'm like, bro, you guys rolled down the same exact escalator. You should have both landed at the same spots at the bottom of the escalator. Where did Andy go? Why is he not responding? How the fuck is Dawn already down here before you guys?
Yeah, none of that made sense. This whole scene I would have cut.
He made no sense of how did he get there? We did see that he survived the fireball.
Yes.
Because we saw he was one of the zombies running through the streets after they broke through the gate. We saw that. We did not see him encounter them at the abandoned circus or in the center of the city before they were attacked by nerve gas. He somehow got around all that and the other military officers and followed them to the stadium.
He has this weird obsession
with his
kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, this whole scene I would have taken out of the movie. It added nothing. It made no sense. Like, why won't Andy answer back?
Yeah.
When Tammy's yelling his name, why doesn't he just say her name back? How did he get all the way to the platform from the bottom of the stairs? Like, they should all be at the bottom of the stairs. That's how
Unless
directions
he tumbled
work.
Down and kept walking in the dark without...
Or he just, kept rolling. Imagine him like a tumbleweed. He just rolled 700 meters away from the bottom of the... It made no sense.
It was also... I think it was a bullshit way to kill off Scarlett, personally. I don't think
you needed to kill Scarlett.
I think that you could have, but you should have had her own people kill her, just like the fucking Doyle died.
I felt
to kind of double down on, who's the real villain here?
I felt like killing Doyle was enough.
But
I don't feel like killing Scarlett also gave us anything more.
It did. It gave us more of a reason to fucking feel bad for these kids who now have literally no one.
I can't feel any worse for these kids.
Well,
I didn't need Scarlett to die for that.
That's the plot drive that they add by the one person who could have helped them she is now dead. Fucking Dawn killed her too.
They also wanted
the one person who knew the secret about fucking the kid's blood.
Yeah, I guess that's why you have to kill her, because of what happens at the very end. So I'll give them that, but
it's a stupid plot driving point.
Well, they were too in love with the idea of the dad biting the son, and the son being immune, which is what ends up happening. Yeah. You think the son's dead, he's not.
Dawn bashes in fucking Scarlett's skull with the rifle, and then Tammy manages to pick up the fucking gun and follow to the platform where she sees her dad chasing down Andy. And
gets him and bites him, and she thinks he's dead.
And so she finally kills her dad.
She kills her dad, and Andy tries to run away from her because he thinks he's infected. Turns out he is infected, but he's not turning.
Yeah, like his mom, he's got the genetic mutation. And so when he falls down on the tracks, and she's still chasing him, she's like, Andy, come back, don't leave me. He falls down, I'm like, oh shit, did he actually just drop dead from the infection? He gets up, and he's like, am I one of them? She's like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
And so they managed to fucking follow the rest of the tunnel into the stadium
where Flint's copter is waiting. And after a little tense moment, he lets them on the plane, like as you would expect.
She hides Andy. Tammy hides Andy behind her because she knows that if Flynn were to see,
he sees them eyeballs
or the neck. No, she.
Oh yeah, or the neck.
If he would see Andy's
just pull
neck,
your collar up, man.
Yeah, and the eyeball too. He'd see that the eyeball had that crazy blood spot.
Yeah, I guess you'd see the neck before the eyeball, but yeah, he lets them both on, and then we cut. We cut to the helicopter. It appears to either have landed or crashed somewhere.
Yeah, they're all safe. They fled. They were able to get away, and the helicopter rides off into the sunset, and we fade to black.
Yeah.
Except, ... 28 days later appears on the screen again. And we see the broke down helicopter of Flynn, while you get flashes of infected people rushing a subway up to the streets, and it keeps cutting back and forth between the crash helicopter, the picture of Flynn's family, which has now got blood smeared on it and is tattered.
Yeah.
You see that the inside of the helicopter is disheveled and been ripped apart, wires are hanging, all while still getting flashes of fucking infected running up through the subways and rushing the streets. And guess where the streets they're rushing now?
Sweet Paris.
We are in Paris because you see the Eiffel Tower.
So we have now hit
final cut.
We've now hit the European mainland. So this is what 28 years later now has to deal with. Like this is.
Did the infection go global?
Yeah.
What is the world like 28 years later after an infection spread past Great Britain?
What fun!
So we get a retcon answer from 28 days later. 28 days later, we get the confirmation that in the first movie, no, it did not spread past Britain. Yeah. They were able to contaminate it. Because throughout the movie, they were like, oh, I heard on the radio that it made it to Paris and it made it to Germany.
And then I heard nothing. Yeah. Turns out that was fake news, man.
That was all just people speculating and assuming because they were talking over shortwave radio within England.
Yeah. And you kind of got when the helicopter picks them up at the end, you're kind of like, okay, well, someone's still okay.
Well, you knew that shit was going to go sideways because Andy was still infected.
Yeah, it seemed like a bad move.
And if anybody touched him or fucking rubbed, got his blood from his neck wound on them, they were infected too. And that's... Yeah. He's the reason why the infection spread.
All he had to do was cough in his sister's face, and we're done. Or cough in the pilot's face if his sister was also
which
immune,
which we don't believe, know. Might have happened on the helicopter because of the helicopter crash and the way that shit went down. Maybe she became infected. Maybe he infected Flynn mid-flight.
Yeah.
So there's speculation there. Maybe when 28 Years Later comes out next year.
Yeah.
Because it's slated to release in 2025.
We shall see.
Maybe we'll get some answers of what happened to the kids. Maybe that'll be some connecting points. Yeah. Hell, there's talks that Cillian Murphy is going to be coming back.
I'd be great with that.
and it's like, oh shit, he'd probably be really upset to know that he survived the 28 days, but 28 years he's still doing this shit.
Yeah, heartbreak. Poor guy.
So that's the final end of the movie. The final shot we get is infected rushing the streets of Paris, and we only know it's Paris because of the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah.
Unless it's somehow the fake Eiffel Tower in Las Vegas, then...
That would be very... What a bait and switch.
It's like, no, it made all into the U.S.
Yeah.
It's in Vegas, baby.
Very good, yeah.
Fallout, New Vegas.
Elvis zombies everywhere.
Yeah, we already got that, though.
Yeah.
We already got that in that fucking Dave Bautista, Zack Snyder zombie movie.
Oh, yeah, it's true. But yeah, that's 28 weeks later. Like I said, I was not a huge fan of the action scenes, but overall I liked the development, and I really like where it ended. Because really, what could you do with 28 years later if it had not spread, right? Like if this had ended with them containing it again, it'd be like, all right, 28 years later, it's just like a romantic comedy with like Ben Affleck, and it has nothing to do with the zombies at all.
Maybe 28 Days Later is connected to fucking Train to Busan.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Because those aren't zombies either, they're just rage infected.
They are so mad, those guys. Yeah.
I don't know.
But yeah, that was 28 weeks later.
If we're gonna go, all right. So if we're gonna go on like a scale rating, I give it like a 3 out of 5 star rating. It's average. It's not a movie that's even in my top 10 zombie films.
I think I can say that as well.
There are plenty of zombie movies and TV shows that I could list off that I would watch again before I watch this again.
For me, there were enough really good scenes that were memorable that I ended up enjoying it overall. But yeah, there were directorial choices I definitely would have done different. I would probably give it a 4 out of 5 as opposed to a 3 out of 5. but I would also say not in my top 10 zombie movies. It seemed more of a man's inhumanity to man movie than
And
like
not
the
as
zombie. Yeah,
focused as
not
the-
as focused on zombie, which I didn't find to be a huge problem, but it also definitely feels like a bait and switch from what you're expecting going into
that's
the second
exactly
movie in
what
that
wound up
series.
happening with The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead was more of about the
Yeah.
man's humanity thing versus
That ended up being a budget thing, like the
like we're spending too much on zombies.
that season where they just hung out at a farm barn the whole time, that was some weird budget thing. I don't remember the details, but yeah, well, 28 years later, they have a chance to win Goreship back and keep me one, I guess. We'll see how that turns out. What are we doing next time, Goreship? Where are we? Where do we go from here?
All right, so for this one, I was a little torn. I had a couple of
Got it. When was Torn released?
And you. No, I was split between a couple of different movie choices just because I'm like, God, I really want to get to both these movies.
Yeah.
I don't know which one I want to do first. But
it's a good problem to have.
But the horror gods pointed me in the right direction.
Yeah.
So I no longer need to flip a coin about it.
Well, that's great.
This week, some great news came out about one of my favorite horror movie franchises, The Collector.
Collector. I knew it. I saw it on the face of the book.
The Collector Part 3, also known as The Collected, is officially being greenlit to restart filming. Now, The Collector is one of my favorite horror movie characters in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Very simple slasher premise, and we'll talk about it more in detail when we watch over the movies, but it goes The Collector, The Collection, and then The Collected for this Part 3. Yep. They had some troubles back in 2019 where the original production company filmed for 8 days and then shut down production without any word. Didn't tell anybody, and there was a legal battle for the last 5 fucking years for the guy who created it to get the rights back to it so he can finish his third opus.
Shit.
Operandi. That's his whole fucking thing. He's like, I have done it. I won the legal battle. The Collected is finally gonna fucking happen. All the people that you wanted from the original are coming back. So,
yay!
That was a big, big win for me, and I was like, "That's it. That's our movie, The Collector."
All right.
2009's The Collector.
I
have to be specific because there was a movie from 1965 that had Christopher Walken. Called The Collector, which is based off the book The Collector.
Is it a horror movie?
It is a thriller movie, but not at all in the same vein of this one.
2009, The Collector, people. Yes. Don't get it wrong.
I will have so much to say about this movie.
This is one of Goreship's, would you say top 5 horror movies of all time?
Top 3.
Top 3 of all time. So it's about fucking time. But before we leave you, gentle listener, we still have to open our junk drawer and do a little junk talk.
Junk talk!
Yes, and Goreship, this was your baby. So what do you have? What's on deck?
So in the kind of keeping in the same vein of what I chose last
pizza.
In the same vein, stylings of what I chose last month with PG Psycho Goreman, I also chose a short this month that is very 80s retrograde body gore
80s.
horror.
Yeah, so 80s.
Lots of practical effects filled.
When it opened, before it even said 1986, I was like, this is a VHS tape. Yep. This is 80s as fuck.
I decided to go with Pizza Panic Party. Pizza Panic Party.
Wait, Pizza Planet Party 2 is what I have.
No, I don't know why you got a 2. It's Pizza Panic Party.
No. I don't know why I have Planet and Party
no, this
2.
is the first short. So Pizza Panic Party. The description goes, it's 1986. 4 teenage girls enjoy a pizza night that turns into a nightmare.
Four teenage girls that, for the life of me, I cannot figure out why they're friends.
Exactly.
They are 4 different stereotypes that I do not understand.
Or each of the 80s stereotypes of characters in movies that you still, like if you watch Sleepaway Camp, or
Prep,
13.
Nerd, Wrong Side of the Tracks, and Last Girl.
Yeah.
Who ends up dying first.
But this is a nice little short 9-minute and 20-second film from Gorgasma. And Gorgasma,
what a name.
Gave this little preface in the bio saying, Gorgasma presents Pizza Panic Party, the first in our series called Masterpieces. Our masterpieces are short horror films that have little extra gorgasm sauce smeared on them. These select pieces are super concentrated, high impact, 10 minutes or less horror films to make you jump, scream, laugh, or projectile vomit all over the wall. So, this is the very first short in a series of shorts that they're going to be doing.
Think we'll come back for some of the others?
Oh, I think so. If they're as entertaining to me as this first one.
Yeah, this one was great.
After I watched it, I was like, yeah, I think he'll get a kick out of this, especially because you like PG Gorman, Psycho Gorman.
Yeah.
I thought, all right, if he liked that, he'll like this. It's in the same vein. And I felt like it was good to kind of keep in that. But, so, Pizza Panic Party.
Yes.
The first, not the second. Was written and directed by Graham Denman. Story was by Mark Villabus and Heather Mage. It stars Avery Pottery as Margot, Sydney McCarthy as Jeanette, Chaya Matthews as Tracy, and Kyra Wisely as Sandra.
Yes.
And
Sandra is our prep, Tracy our nerd, Jeanette is our punk girl from the wrong side of the tracks, and Margot would be our every girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your girl next door, middle of the line, like this is how everybody knows each other.
Exactly, yeah.
So I chose this wild-ass 80s gore-filled short because it was so much of what I love about practical effects and cheesy B-side movies.
Yes.
It had the music, bad dialogue, and one-liner deliveries, and it gave off that vibe of like Evil Dead with the body horror Reanimator. It's just a good time. It's a story about a girl's night gone wrong when one girl who clearly, in my mind, this was an allergic reaction. Alright, when you eat a mushroom and olive pizza, I think this is an appropriate reaction to have. Like, I mean, I don't
not
have
for
a lot
everyone.
of... Yeah. So...
It's not up there with the pineapple and pizza debate, but there's a lot of people who would not touch a mushroom olive pizza. And it's kind of a weird choice.
It leads to this weird brain hemorrhage monster that appears and tries to kill her friends. And I totally get that, but that's just how high school goes, right? You know, it's normal in high school to have that happen.
We also get so many of the great, like, 80s fucking sayings. Makes me want to Ralph, gag me with a spoon, like... Yeah. They did their research. Right? You got 80s music, you got fucking 80s posters on the wall. Everyone's dressed like it's the 80s.
So I love how we open this. It's just a nice little establishing shot of a suburban 80s style fucking house. That, like almost the same looking houses from like Nightmare on Elm Street style.
Oh yeah, which we'll get some love in this as well.
Exactly. That's why I brought it up.
Yep.
And so we pan in, we have these 80s jams on the radio.
Yeah. Sanders dancing, and then Sanders' name comes up so that we can
That's
be introduced
also
to her.
Very 80s style.
Yep.
80s style of every girl that whenever we go by, pan by her with the camera, she gets, a little dialogue, and then they get her name.
Yep.
And then you get the other girl, and then you get her name.
Yeah.
So... You said the first one was Sandra?
Yeah. Because she's the preppy blonde. She's dancing.
Yeah.
She's dancing to the music.
Putting on some music, jamming out. And then you get Tracy, who's laying upside down on the bed.
And her name's upside down. It flips.
And as she rotates, her name rotates. I love that little visual.
It's cute. It's just cute. Yep.
Then you get the wrong side of the track girl, Jeanette.
Yeah.
Jeanette, who's wearing a...
She's wearing a leather jacket.
Okay, so it's a little weird. She's wearing, like, volleyball shorts, a tight white band shirt or Ramones shirt, and a leather jacket.
Yeah.
I was like, this is a kind of a clash because you're wearing sporty stuff, but also you got to wear the leather jacket.
When it's sleepover time, you got to take off your ripped jeans at some point. I mean,
you got to keep the leather jacket on, though.
Yeah, you got to. You got to let people know what side of the track you're on. Also, it's where she keeps her knife.
That comes into play, but also, and then we get them doing little barbs back and forth, talking about how their music shit is taste and calling each other bitches. And so
Tracy also has a solid black Rubik's Cube, which it's just sitting on the bed beside her. They never comment on it. It has no purpose. Just a weird choice. And I'm wondering, there's an old joke about Rubik's Cubes, which for any of our listeners who are under 40, they were squares with it was a big square with a bunch of small squares that were different colors, and you could turn the different parts of the cube, and you were trying to match the sides so that the whole one side was all yellow, one side was all red, one side was all black. But a funny thing that people would do is when they couldn't solve the Rubik's Cube, they would take the stickers off and move them and solve it that way, or they would paint the whole Rubik's Cube the same color so that it was always solved. And I feel like a solid black Rubik's Cube is an old joke about how people would solve the Rubik's Cube because it was a pain in the ass to solve it correctly.
But as we get this little back and forth establishing of these obviously different backgrounds of girls,
Margot has to come in and save him.
She's just like, I've got the pizza.
Yeah, calm the fuck down.
And so they're finally gonna chow down on their little palate, talking about like, where'd you get this pizza? Is that a misprint? It's like you're gonna die like everybody else.
Die like the rest.
And it's like, it's clearly you're supposed to say dine like the rest.
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't know. It seems a little funky. Where did you get this? Some new pizza place? She's like, I figured I'd give him a shot.
She said something like, she said some guy's name, like Danny recommended it, and they all like rolled around like
Ralph.
Danny. Yeah.
One girl was like, ugh, gag me with a spoon.
Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, that must be like her boyfriend or a guy she's interested in at least, and that the other three don't like. The question is, did he set her up, or did he actually get a good pizza? And she just lost the lottery. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I had the same question. I was like, I think Danny set your ass up. She's like, it's not like that. He's not my type. You know me. I like the Freddy Kruegers.
And I'm like, oh,
what?
Hey, I like nerdy girl. She's a super freak.
Yeah. Tracy's like, I don't know. There's something about that fedora and that sweater.
Like, he's a child murderer.
And she's like, and that claw ham.
Jesus. Yeah, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
That nerd wants Freddy. Good job.
A little strange. And they're like, well, it can't count for good taste.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Freddy Krueger as a horror movie character, but like, I
wouldn't date him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The music cuts off suddenly, though, in the middle of their conversation. And the tape that they put in, what was the...
Killer Tunes.
Killer Tunes. And it was... I have made that tape. That is a burner tape that I used to use to record songs off the radio. I had my own Killer Tunes tape.
Well, I love that before that happens, when they're arguing, and Jeanette and Sandra are going back and forth.
Yeah.
About like you dumb bitch, you don't know shit. Yeah. And then Jeanette pulls out her fucking switchblade and stabs the fucking slice of pizza. And they're like, was that necessary? Like, why do you even have that? It's like, you got to stay protected.
Yeah.
And
from us?
I forget what was said, but they started commenting about like Margot's bad choice of pizza, because like, look, it smells funny.
Yeah.
And then
I'll be honest, it did look like a hideous pizza.
Jeanette was like,
I did not
trust
that
what am I doing? She puts her hand on top of Margot's head.
Yeah.
And she's like trying to eat my brain. She's like, what is this? It's a brain sucker. What's it doing? Starving.
Wow, wow, wow.
I was like, oh, they're so funny. They're so ha ha ha.
We can talk time. Shit. Yep.
Basically, her way of being like, girl, you being dumb.
Yeah.
And then as they're starting to eat the pizzas, they're like, what is this? Oh, it's mushroom and olive. And it's like, ew. She's like, well, bitch, next time you can buy your own pizza.
Yeah.
And as she's trying to eat the pizza and still talk to them, she starts like coughing and kind of like, I thought it was clearly an allergic reaction.
Yeah.
Maybe them olives is no good for you, bro.
Yeah.
Maybe
you might have an olive allergy.
Next thing you know, she's coughing more and more and more, and she's like, and her fucking head starts splitting open.
Yeah.
0 to 100 real quick after
we get some pizza vomiting. We get some head popping.
Yeah. Her fucking dome splits open, and this giant fucking alien hemorrhage monster pops out of her skull, a la Evil Dead style.
Yeah.
And it starts
and
like...
it's got a little eye in the center, so she's got 3 eyes now.
Kind of looks like the tumor from Malignant that was in the back of her head.
That's exactly what I thought of. I thought of Malignant when it popped out. And it immediately uses its psychic powers to throw Janine against a wall Jeanette against the wall, because obviously she's the threat here.
And it knocks her knife out of her hand.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, whatever this thing is, it's smart enough to know, take out the hood girl first. Like, take out the punk girl, knock her ass out, and then you can have your way with the prep and the nerd.
and when it throws Jeanette, it shatters a mirror, and Tracy falls over. And it's like, what are you doing to us, Margot? We're your friends.
Yeah.
And Margot is just slobbering everywhere. Her eyes are all yellow and Evil Dead, like, possessed looking.
We should mention right before this, she tries to tell them to run. She's like, the thing inside me wants to hurt you. I can hear its thoughts. Get out of here. And they don't, of course.
Like, what are you talking about? And they literally watch her wig split.
Let's be honest. They're like, we need to get you. They stay because they want to take her to a hospital. So, it's good friend shit. But it turns out to be a mistake here.
And so, when they don't listen to her advice, the music fucking flickers off, and the door slams shut, and this tumorous monster thing, whatever it is,
Pizza
that
brain
has been activated by the pizza.
Yeah.
It's got like telekinetic powers.
Yeah.
It's strong. I don't know if it's magic or telekinesis or what it is, but this motherfucker's
I'm going to assume
strong.
telekinesis because it's a brain. That's just
yeah,
my
that's
guess.
what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I think it's probably that. But, so Jeanette, taken out, mirror shattered.
Boom.
Margot's possessed brain self picks up a giant shard, which also, I keep saying Evil Dead, but it reminded me of the fucking Evil Dead remake from 2012 by Fede Alvarez, when the fucking girl picks up the shard of glass from the broken mirror and starts carving her face with it.
Yeah.
This girl, Margot, grabs a giant shard that looks almost like a machete-style shard, and she starts trying to fucking swing and slash and kill Tracy. This was really funny to me.
Yeah.
Tracy grabs the pizza box to defend herself, and fucking Margot stabs right through it repeatedly. I'm like, bro, that box would have been destroyed after one little
It is obviously a comedic touch that this cardboard pizza box is protecting.
I was like, the laws of cardboard physics don't apply.
It does not protect Sandra, though. She gets a nice throat cut trying to step in.
So Tracy tries to fight back. She's getting stabbed in the pizza box. The pizza box gets ripped apart, and as she's doing that, she comes down with the shard. Margot is who I'm referring to when I say she. Margot comes down with the shard of glass and starts scraping against Tracy's glasses, trying to puncture through her eye.
So good.
If it wasn't for her glasses, that bitch would have lost a fucking eye.
She would have been a pirate.
Yeah. And at this point, Sandra, being the preppy girl, you wouldn't expect this from, especially in most horror movies. She shoulder tackles Margot off of her.
These girls actually carry about each other. Good on them.
Saves Tracy and grabs Jeanette's knife in one motion and is like, back up, Margot. We love you. We don't want anything to we don't want to hurt you, but you're scaring us. And Jeanette finally gets up and tells her, fucking cut her. She runs over and tries to grab the baseball bat that's wedged between Margot's bed and the wall.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, Tracy runs over to try and help Jeanette, and it's just Sandra trying to, wave the little stiletto knife and face it off. She fucking gets the knife knocked out of her hand, and Margot shoves the shard of glass.
I thought she stabbed it into her side.
Did she stab it?
Yeah, because she pulls it out and uses it later.
Oh, that's probably... Okay. So she stabs it in and she yanks it out and throws it down.
Yeah. Anyway,
because
she's got a sharp weapon that she's going to use.
She kills Sandra.
Yeah.
She kills Sandra, and they wind up finally getting the bat free. Mm-hmm. And when Margot turns to look at them, fucking Jeanette pops her one good time with a baseball bat and clobbers her.
Yeah.
And the fucking... she gets a little bit of control back of the monster thing. It starts receding back into her skull, and she's like, just get away, save yourself.
Yeah.
And that doesn't work. It pops right back out and goes completely out of her skull.
Yeah.
So finally, instead of crushing with the baseball bat, Tracy's like, no, I got something for it. Yanks the radio out of the wall and just smashes it onto the tumor.
Yeah. And it just turns into goo.
Yeah, and there's just blood splatter, a dead fucking Margot shell with no brain tumor thing controlling her, dead Sandra on the floor, and Tracy and Jeanette are just like, what the fuck just happened?
The end.
Yep.
Credits.
I was like, bro, I need a part 2.
Yeah, right.
I need a follow-up. I enjoyed that because it was such a chaotic thing in such a short span of time, and it was so funny.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the first 4 minutes, it's just people talking. Like, it's not till like the 4.5 minute mark till shit starts happening. But once shit starts happening, it's just a roller coaster till the end. It's just.
I'm not gonna lie, I love the visual so much of like the split brain Margot with like pizza vomit dripping out of her face, holding that shard of glass, getting ready to fucking cut Tracy.
It was great.
Like, I just still framed that for a second. I was like, that's dope. I would wear that on a shirt. I would get that tattooed.
Yeah. I would just get the pizza box. I would love
with the shard of glass stabbing through it.
Maybe like on the back, like just have the shard of glass cutting through it, but like on the front, it's just the pizza box. It's like the logo from the pizza box.
It's like Die Like the Rest.
Yeah, Die Like the Rest. That's a great fucking pizza box. That's a great prop.
Now, I know I didn't really give any credit at the beginning of this, but because I've been talking about how much I enjoyed this fucking movie in terms of the practical effects, I gotta give a shout out to the special makeup effects artist. Pothmalita Appledew is her name. The sculptor for the props was Mikey Rotella. The 3D scanning person was Jeremy Constantine, and the mold making supervisor who created the visual aesthetics was Aaron Elmerman. Those people really fucking nailed it on like the visual delivery. The concept design of the whole fucking monster was Michael Broom. And apparently there was an actual live-action puppeteer. It wasn't animatronic. It was an actual puppeteer person.
Oh, nice.
Who controlled the brain monster.
Cool.
So that was pretty fucking neat. I thought that all those people deserve shout-outs, not just the writers and the directors.
Absolutely.
Or anything
people
like
that brought it all to life deserve credit as well. Yeah.
So it definitely was one of those ones where I was like, hell yeah.
It's great. Like, it captured the 80s perfectly. Like, and homage to all of the gore monster movies. Yeah, I was here for it. Definitely.
I'm glad you liked it. I was like, either he's gonna like it or he's gonna fucking hate it. It can only go one of two ways because
again, it's silly gore, and I've got a lot of time for silly gore that I don't have for real gore. Well, real gore, as in trying to make real gore in movies. Yeah, so I was here for it. Yeah, it was great. Well, Goreship, I believe that that wraps up another episode of Judgmental Horror Junkies. Thank you, everyone, for giving us your ears. Hope to earn them again next month with The Collector.
Yes, I will be greatly disappointed in anybody who does not like this movie because you're fucking wrong.
Yeah, so next month, come at him. Come at him, bro.
Like I said, I will have so much to say about this movie, from like the history of the movie, the behind the scenes stuff. Like, I own this motherfucker on DVD, so I know all the deleted bonus
this
scenes,
one might
the
be
original alternate endings.
This next episode might be a 3-hour.
I'll try and keep it under 3 hours. I'm not going to go full semantic error.
We hit 2:20 on this one, for whatever that's worth.
No fucking way.
Yeah, 2 hours and 21 minutes and 5 seconds and 6 seconds and 7 seconds.
Okay, well, maybe we will hit the 3 hour mark on that one.
We'll see.
I got so much to say.
But yeah, till then, check the show notes. We've got all of the ways to keep in touch and spread the love. If you know anyone that does the horror movie junket, send our podcast their way. Until then,
we are also open to suggestions. If you have any movie suggestions that we have not covered yet,
or
that
shorts.
you want us to talk about,
please, movies and shorts.
Please send us an email or a direct message on Instagram.
Yeah. Till then, laters, my gators.
Adios.